Cool. Thanks, Dustin.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey, Facebook Live.
Welcome to episode 33, right? We're on 33.
Yep.
Losing track of numbers now. We're not spraying the raid on the bourbon tonight.
I just got it readily available just in case.
Yeah, easy.
Well, we told you about it for a couple weeks. We're really excited to finally have Brad Grimsley back on, and we're going to talk about their trip that they went on, or went to Cuba, and I'm going to try to add something to that and ask questions.
Absolutely. We got Nate on already. I see Ray, Dave Willer's on, Ray Cheshire's on.
All right.
So glad Ray's on. Yeah. All right.
That's early morning this time.
Yes, it is.
And for you guys watching, we're not even doing a whiskey tonight. We're going to be doing Havana Club Blue rum. So everything is Cuban tonight.
Yeah.
Except us.
Yeah.
True.
I had to wear my hat one last time before the season was over, though, Steve.
I didn't say anything on the air about this, but let's go ahead and get started here.
All right.
Before that bird quiets down, we gotta get him on.
Yeah.
Thanks. Who's got a BB gun? I don't.
I think it was. Oh, we're on, aren't we?
Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bourbon MBS podcast, episode 33. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. We are excited to have you on and listening. Tonight's a special night. We have one of our old guests from the first few podcast episodes. Brad Grimsley's back on, along with our best friend.
No. No.
Best guest.
Brandon Karst.
Debatable.
He was on last week, but tonight we're going to talk about Cuba. These three went on a trip to Cuba, about a month ago, Steve? Right?
Just over a month ago, yeah, and Brad's going down
Just
tomorrow.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, the audio, he's already in Cuba. As you're
True
listening to
enough.
this. So,
Yeah, Friday.
yeah, so tonight we're doing something way different. We're going to do Havana Club Blue rum, and we're going to be smoking some great farm rolled cigars, custom rolls, and some different things tonight as well. So, yeah. How's it going, Steve?
It's going really well this week, actually.
I know you're excited about this podcast. I'm excited to listen to everybody, the stories. And
I'm interested just because it's kind of the first one. Like, well, you guys did one when I was on vacation in, was that June? Where you guys did like cigar stories kind of thing. So like this is, I think, we'll go into the Cuba thing. We can always talk about even just other types of vacations, how it differs from that and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of interested to see how this one goes because we don't necessarily have a topic about, opinions or morals like last week, stuff like this. This should be more of an informative one. So I'm hoping to see the live Facebook numbers go up a bit because I'm hoping to get some questions for Brandon, myself, and especially having Brad here. He's been down, 6 times there? This will be the 7th?
This will be the 6th.
This will be the 6th. So,
well,
it'll be good.
And is this the first time we haven't done whiskey? This is the first episode?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, even that's different. But I am glad to do a rum, especially with, as a world-renowned bottle as this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is a pretty popular one, and it's not too incredibly expensive, but compared to other rums there, it was. So, it's roughly about $45, call it.
Yeah.
40 kook. But then you're looking at the other ones that we were drinking, and they were topping out 12, 15 kook, something like that.
Right.
They did have some other higher end ones, though. I remember where these cigars are from. Alex at his store, I was looking at some of his selections, and they definitely had some that were up in that, I think 60, 70 kook.
Right.
So that's going to be a lot of years probably on that rum.
20 plus probably.
Yeah, I would agree.
I bet that'd be pretty, maybe it'd probably be good, but I'm guessing it'd be dry. I don't know, would that be a good way of, I know nothing about rum.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting, but want to say before we get into it too far, thank you to your sponsors, we've had we had a lot of actual response to the live that we did the other night at the shop on Monday. That was actually one that still got 500 or so views, right around there. Give or take.
Random Q&A too.
Random Q&A, but with the sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton, we do have some Tinderbox / Altadis cigars in the garage. I don't know if we will get to them, but they are the Reserva Real from Romeo and Julieta. So I thought that would be one that if we did move on to something more domestic for us, that would be one that we should definitely follow up with, because it's going to be kind of in a similar body, actually probably lighter. But then also Altadis, like I said, and then BS Cigar Company.
Yeah.
So we're working on trying to get more representation per episode, things like that. So it's interesting having some of the conversations, like Crown Heads is wanting to be on, I think, in November. So Miguel will be here, and he wants to, bring the whiskey. He wants to bring the cigars. So kind of sponsor episode by episode. That might be good.
And Ian in October, right?
And Ian from Oliva Cigars is wanting to do the same thing. So
that would be awesome.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So it's fun to see where we're going with this, but that's about it.
Yeah, I just want to say before, I've had a lot of people, like just on my personal social medias, ask if they can either sponsor one of the podcasts with a bottle and stuff like that. And Steve and I have kind of touched on that together in our meetings, but I think a good thing to know is that you're welcome to do that. If you want us to buy the bottle and then we tell you how much it was and then you send us the money. I think that's the easiest way to do it than us just having your money, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's what Ray wants to do actually. Ray from Hong Kong, he's like, hey man, just let me you've already got my credit card at the shop, just let me know what I'm buying you. And
that's good to know, actually.
Yeah. Well, if anyone else needs anything, that'll be on the Facebook page probably tomorrow morning.
Do we thank him?
Ray's credit card number?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I like that.
So do we thank Ray now? Or
yeah, Ray, thanks so much for everything you're about to buy.
Appreciate it, Ray.
He's canceling my card right now.
I did want to tell you though, Steve, I am going on a barrel pick tomorrow with a couple veterans. Phil Davis, we've mentioned him a couple times, but we're going to Indiana. I'm not really sure what distillery we're going to, but we're going to be doing a barrel pick tomorrow. And it's
who's the other? Che, is he going with you?
Yeah, Che's going.
He reached out to me and said that he wants to be on. He and Phil, that'd be good to get him on. He said probably close to Veterans Day or something like that.
Yeah.
That'd be a nice.
That would be amazing.
Nice one to talk about.
Especially with them, being our veterans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we missed?
I don't think so. If you're here in Columbus, Ohio, trying to get the final details from the vendor, but should be tomorrow or at the latest Friday. We're going to be doing a post on Bourbon BS Podcast on Tinderbox, at the Tinderbox, but October 10th, we're going to be doing the prime rib dinner. So it's a Wednesday. We will not be recording that night.
I know.
So we're going to have to do an audible there, but it should be good. It should be good. That's always a favorite one for everyone because the staff at Fidel puts on a fantastic meal that is completely off menu, and everyone just seems to enjoy it.
Oh, I almost forgot. Dustin was gracious enough that he got a bottle engraved that says Bourbon and BS Podcast. And next week, I think we're going to start doing the giveaway for that. And then we'll draw the winner up until the next after that.
Yeah, that'll work.
But yeah, keep a lookout for that. So you're going to get a free bottle. So make sure you tune in and stay up to date with that. But yeah, like we said, we're starting tonight with the Havana Club Blue. It is from Cuba. Steve brought that back, right?
I did.
Yeah, you brought that back.
Bought it at the Partagas shop. I think it was the first day, just because we didn't know. We assumed we'd see it elsewhere, but they had it. I know Mark really likes buying things from Partagas if possible, just because they were so good to him. So are the other shops, but the warm welcome he gets there is.
What was it? 60
incredible.
Kook? You said
40 Kook.
40. Well, so that's $50. Right?
Kook is CUC, and that's Cuban.
Universal Convertible or Convertible Universal Cuban, I think.
Yeah. But when we were down there, you see, and I think we talked about it the one time when I was back. It was you see Kook, and then you see pesos.
Yeah.
And Brandon and I are standing in the lobby of that hotel while you guys were exchanging money at first, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, why does this menu have? This is 3.00, and this says 1,500 or something like that. And I'm like, I assume they accept both, but we didn't know what we were getting.
Well, speaking about the Havana Club Blue, I think it would be in the podcast best interest if Brad took this one over because I know nothing about it. And you actually have met the guy that
Good guy.
produced
Master
this.
distiller.
Yeah, so without further ado.
So it's really a nice one. Smooth. It's got great flavor to it. It's aged, and the master distiller there went through and hand selected barrels as you do with master selects.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular one was aged in new white oak barrels, so virgin white oak.
So bourbon barrels, but without age
right.
on them, so that's even cooler. So it is kind of like a bourbon, besides a mash
Yeah.
bill.
But I think what makes Cuban rum so special is the Cuban sugar cane that goes into it. So the Cuban sugar cane just yields a really sweet, nice tasting
Yeah,
rum.
it is super
Good.
sweet.
Ray says speak up.
Yeah, Ray did.
Yeah, because he's catching it from that mic over there.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Ray. Yeah. So, but a good one. Yeah, it's an enjoyable rum. It's worth. I think it's worth the extra few bucks. You get some of the younger ones. They got a little bit more of a harshness to them.
Burn.
Yeah, burn.
I mean, this does not, in my opinion.
No.
It has that sweetness. I mean, the color on it's really interesting too. I think it almost in certain lights, I think it is a little bit different, but especially like in a glass like I'm drinking out of.
It's got more of an amber
Yeah,
color
It's
to
almost a
it.
burnt orange.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? So do we know how old this is?
Pour it out. Burn orange, no, get out.
I thought this one was pushing. What was it? Was it 9 or 19? I don't remember now.
I don't think it says anywhere.
I think
It just says triple barrel aged,
Yeah, I think
which was
it,
really interesting.
it could be as much as 9 years old. I think. So
Yeah.
Well, if it does.
You want to read the box?
yeah.
Yeah, I am. I mean,
Go
it's,
ahead.
it's interesting. It's kind of a cool thing too. I mean, this says limited 2018 release on there. It almost says like a stamp,
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting. But it's like a wooden feel for the tube as opposed to everything else you see, which is really interesting. Yeah. But yeah, all it says is the third stage is the natural barrel aging, is what it says on here. So I don't know. I agree. I think the sugarcane must be a big part of that one. For all of the Cuban rums, I mean, definitely. And I don't know what the difference is as far as this goes. I mean, I had this first when I was down with Eric Espinosa, and I was just blown away by it.
Right.
And I mean, that was something that we hadn't had. I mean, that bottle was probably here, and between Eric, myself, and Brian, and maybe Hector, I can't remember if Hector was drinking, but I mean, that was gone in like 2 hours,
2 hours,
while we were eating dinner, and then while we started smoking the samples for the BS Silver and stuff like that. So,
Right.
very cool. And I wish we could get it.
I think it's the soil in Cuba, right? So the soil in Cuba yields again the sugar cane there, and that's it's a major export.
Yeah.
And continues to be for Cuba is their sugar cane.
Oh, for sure.
Certainly when the relations were better with America, that was one of the exports that came off the island: fruits and the sugar cane.
Is that all it is fruits and sugar cane? Is like
Well,
the
it's
mash
tobacco.
bill?
So the mash bill for rum.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much when it starts, it's almost like a molasses,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It's really a dark, thick, and it smells like molasses when you.
They heat the sugar then?
They
Heat it
heat
in
it,
water
yeah.
or something, make a syrup?
Yeah, it's a syrup corn. It's really thick and it's got a heavy foam to it when it's bubbling up and when they're cooking it.
Yeah.
And then obviously they add yeast to it to break down the sugars to get the alcohol to go. But the residual is just phenomenal. Right?
Yeah.
As far as I've read, I've tried to look up some things about this, and it's funny because what I found is that they call this a cask strength.
They call this a cask strength?
Yeah, because
It's
I don't know.
45%.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know if most rums are.
Or 40 usually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
40%.
so they consider this a cask strength.
A little higher strength. Yeah.
But I think it's great. I think it's super sweet. You definitely taste almost like a sugar cane in there.
Yeah.
You taste that in there. The thing about rum is it always got me how, you know, it is a liquor, but how sweet it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like scary, like how sweet it is, especially.
It's easy to drink it.
Oh yeah.
This is too. I mean, this is. I don't want to say refreshing necessarily, but I mean it's something that's not like you're not kind of getting that heat in the back of your throat when you swallow. Like some of the bourbons we've been drinking on the podcast, you've got all sorts of spice and you know it's just kind of palate killing almost until you drink your third one, and then by then you're drunk. You know, especially with like some of the ones that are like what 120 proof stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is something that it's like I think you said it when it sneaks up on you. You know, you were talking like you don't like to drink rum because you feel different drunk almost.
Well, I've never been drunk on rum, so I don't know. All I know is that my mom is really mean on rum. So I don't really.
Just like my mom gets mean. Like, that's all right. Man.
I just she can't drink rum, so I don't really want to find out.
We'll find out, and we'll have video of it. You know, if this continues tonight.
But yeah, I think it's almost. I was reading like up notes, and last week we got in this big, you know, topic about notes and stuff, and talking about that and kind of making fun of it. But I do definitely get like that cinnamon and that toffee and kind of like a nutmeg in there and stuff like that. But definitely the finish is all creaminess and that sugar cane like really comes out. So and the mouth feels pretty good too. You know, there's no real burn like what we've experienced thus far. So
if you ring around your glass, the legs on it, it's almost oily.
Yeah.
Right. It's just amazing.
It is actually like real oil. It's not even just like legs on the glass. At least on mine. Mine's a different glass again, but
just sticks.
It's just it just kind of hangs out there. Yeah. And I wonder if like humidity has something because it's pretty humid here.
I don't know.
Right now.
It might be from the molasses. I mean, it might just be a different, I don't know, starter.
I think it's, but that's what gives it. You know, when you drink this one, it really coats the mouth.
Yeah.
Right? It's got a little bit of a heavy feel to it when you're drinking it.
Do you think that's why, you know, because this is a drink of choice down there, is that just because it's available down there?
It's available. That's the main reason.
Yeah, or is that like, do you think rums are specifically supposed to be paired with cigars, you know, traditionally?
Well, so I don't know about that. I know that there's a lot of work that gets done between like Havana Club and the other Cuban rum that's down there, Santiago. Those master distillers work with the various brands. Cohiba, for example, did a pairing with Havana Club a couple years back.
Yeah.
And I think they called it the Maestro. I could be wrong, but.
This is the selection day.
The Maestros,
yeah.
But so it was basically what they did was they took the master roller and blender for Cohiba and put them with the master distiller at Havana Club, and it took them a good 18 months.
Wow.
But they created a rum/cigar that went really well together.
Nice.
But you know, part of it is, to your point, availability. You know, they do have whiskeys on the island, and you can find them, but it's a fairly limited selection. And part of it is it's just you know, it takes so much to get it imported there.
Right.
You know, it's coming from far and wide to get there. And the truth be told, most Cubans don't make the kind of money to really afford, you know, a $50, $60, $80, $90 bottle of scotch or whatever.
And I don't think we saw a whole lot of. It's interesting because our driver, especially Roy, who was like our fifth wheel kind of the whole time, you know, as far as he's the fifth guy in the group. And you guys have him again this weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, but he doesn't drink or smoke. And everyone thinks that like, you know, Cubans down there are going to be smoking cigars all the time. Well, back to your point, unless you're in the industry, a roller or whatever, no, you're not. You can't afford it.
Right. Well, like, even this, you say it's not that expensive. That's a month's salary for most Cubans.
That's a good reference.
You know, it's not expensive to us, but for them, it is.
It's everything. Yeah, I mean that's the whole point. But it's interesting because I don't know if they're going full blown like towards tourism or. I mean, again, we have to remember, and I think a lot of people don't know why we can't get Cuban cigars still. The ignorance is still there, or now you can get it and all that stuff. But I mean, they obviously are exporting this all over the world. Like you can get Havana Club
Correct.
all over the world except for in the United States. So again, to that, I don't know if, in my opinion, if they would be really trying to pair it necessarily. It's just like we do with the bourbons or the Irish whiskeys or the scotches, any of that stuff. It's just kind of goes together, and I think it gets to that point where it's your preference.
Right.
Yeah. I was just curious about like if it was just solely on availability and whether
it probably has something to do with it, and
Yeah.
I think the Cuban cigar in particular, because of the flavor profile in a Cuban cigar, it lends itself to being a bit of a more milder cigar than say your full-blown Nicaraguans.
Yeah.
They typically have a little bit of a sweeter back taste to them.
Yeah.
The Cuban cigars. They pair very nicely with rum. It's a good pairing. In fact, this cigar with that rum is actually pretty good too.
I'm getting a lot of sweetness out of the cigar.
Yeah, exactly.
it's all sweet.
Sweetness.
This is definitely a dessert, finishing.
This reminds me of and again, it's funny how the flavors of like drinking the rum, because by the time I think we were really smoking, we had either the coffee with a bunch of sugar in it.
Right.
That was how we started our days. But I mean, this reminds me of smoking the Partagas Serie E No. 2 that I got. I got like 2 of those down there. I remember smoking. It's kind of like that not overpowering, but like it's got a lot of like that sweetness on it. And then you go back to the rum, back to the cigar, and it's just, it almost gives me that lingering. If anyone's had an actual Cuban coffee, it's funny. It's a strong espresso, right? I mean,
More or less. Yeah.
more or less.
Right.
Brandon got a couple bags of it, and even when he made it at the house we were staying in, it tasted just like what they were doing at these higher end cigar shops. But
The sugar lends a lot of flavor.
oh my gosh, yeah.
I've drank it without the sugar. It's not the same
No.
at all. So
No.
the sugar is a heavy profile within
Yeah.
Cuban coffee.
Well, and it's funny because everywhere we went pretty much, unless they had a dish like at the Partagas lounge area, but like at Havana Club or Club Havana, it was 2 packets of sugar with the coffee.
Right.
Like, by the time you get to the bottle, you can stir it up, but even if you do one full sleeve of it,
You got a sludge.
as you're getting at or you got like the granules, like you have like rocks in your mouth, like of just sugar, and then it just melts on your tongue there, and then you go to a cigar, and it's like, I'm getting a lot of that sensation now as far as that lingering sweetness, which is actually pretty enjoyable.
Do you need an insulin shot?
No,
Well,
No.
That's sweet.
not that sweet.
Well, I know you guys went, Steve, Brandon, Brad, along with Mark. We were trying to get Mark Jeremiah's here tonight, but that didn't work out too well. Brad's a real trooper because they're both going back tomorrow. I know we said that, but
Well, Brad's also been like sleeping in different states and on planes and everything. Like, when did you get back today?
I got back last night.
You got back last night, okay.
Yeah.
But so Brad was gracious enough to like bring us this first cigar, and I know at the beginning I may have overspoke what I was supposed to say about these cigars, and I'm sorry if I did that. But are you able to tell
It's quite all right.
kind of the background
Yeah.
of these, where you guys got them, like how was the experience,
Sure.
and if you know the blend, I guess.
It's Cuban.
Thanks.
That's what we talked about before. It's Cuban wrapper with a Cuban binder with a mix of Cuban and Cuban filler.
It's effectively the Bihiki 56. The roller that rolled them used to roll in the Cohiba factory, rolled the Bihikis. And he now has his own. He was awarded. He's a level 9 roller. Alex is his name, and he was awarded a shop, Casa del Albanos, at the Commodore Hotel. And essentially, when I was there in January, I asked him to custom roll 50 cigars. And so what you're smoking is out of that batch.
Nice,
So
thank you.
I picked them up in February, so they've been aging a little bit in the humidor.
Thank you very much.
I asked him for, it was noticed that it's got a little bit darker wrapper than what you normally see on a Cuban.
That's true.
So
Mine is lighter.
Yeah.
I think you guys got the darker.
No,
See,
they're-
it's a
They're all
little.
about the same.
You think it's something about Colorado shade, like straight middle
it's-
brown, shade of brown.
Yeah.
But so I asked him for the darker leaves on the outside. I've got a lot of oil in it.
Oh my
A
god.
lot of oil.
That's
on
why I
it.
said velvety. You
Yeah,
made
it
made
really
fun of
is.
me for it, but I
And
think
it's
it's
almost-
super velvety.
You can almost rub a thumb on it and feel it on your thumb when you're done. But it's The other thing I asked him to do is add he put an extra leaf, it's actually a half leaf of the Hero, just to give it a little bit more body, and a little bit more I guess complexity.
It seems to be building a little bit.
Yeah,
like the first quarter here.
I don't think it'll be. It's not gonna be like a Camacho, right? So you can blow your head off sort of thing, but certainly he's got a little bit more body than a normal Cuban cigar. At least I think he does.
But how cool is that? Like creating the relationships and gone down there as many times as you guys have done, and literally creating basically your own cigar. I mean, honestly, you know the blend, but you're still creating something that you can't get anywhere else. You just said add this, and it's in there, and no one else besides you has this.
Yeah,
so, I mean, I just
cool.
think, I think the experience is just phenomenal. Like, did you ever think that you'd be able to do something like that? I mean, that's just. I know that's kind of an obvious question, but it's awesome.
Never, and I think the interesting thing is when you're an American down there, they see so many, or they've seen so many Americans come and go, right? So it takes a few trips to kind of, they see you again and they see you again and they go, okay, this guy's actually coming back, right?
Yeah.
Truth be told, the pricing on the cigars, right, begins to reflect that. So you might go in one time and he's got pre-rolled, they're sitting in his humidor as you saw, right?
Yeah.
Tube you saw.
Yeah.
And if you're kind of your first trip in, he might charge you, $12 a cigar, right? Which to them is a good price. These, we're paying probably anywhere between $5 and $7 now for a custom rolled Cuban cigar.
And you're buying, and it's not. I mean, it's amazing that it drops, and you guys are buying some bulk, but it's not like you're ordering like 1,000 cigars being rolled. Like, people think about to drop it almost in half, basically.
Right.
You're gonna have to really just say, all right, I'm gonna give you, I'll pay for 1,000 now, and it's not like that at all.
I think I've bought, all told from Alex, is maybe in the 2 to 250.
Yeah.
And March Mice is probably similar.
Yeah.
But the guy knows we're coming back. When he sees
And bringing people too.
Bring people to shop and so it's all about relationships. They really are very friendly people, particularly once you get to know them. They treat you just like family. They really do.
Well, and I think it has to be getting better too, like the developing of relationships that you guys have done. Because if I recall, when we were at Comodoro and Alex was there, he came, sat down, gave us, all four of us, a cigar. And it was either you or Mark that I think said, like, normally he's not sitting down with us.
Normally not.
Like, it keeps building. Like, every time that you go down, every time that Mark goes down, it's, like you said, it's, if you get a chance, they're going to come and sit with you or give you a cigar, or it's not just that, oh, hey, good to see you again, what did you need, or is there anything I can do for you? Now, I mean, like, Alex sat down, we went over there twice, and he sat with us both times.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, for an hour. He'd pop up here and there, but I mean, it was very cool. I mean, he really liked talking about it. Brad gave Alex one of the Ramones that AJ Fernandez did, just to see what his thoughts was.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so now I like those, right? Some people don't, but I love them. I think they're really well made. The wrapper on them is absolutely phenomenal. So I had some with me in Cuba, and Alex is one of those guys that he actually smokes cigarettes more frequently than he does cigars, but when he smokes a cigar, he will tell you flat out whether he likes it or not. And I've been with him a time or two where he takes, he gets a 3/4 of an inch in or whatever, and he puts it down. He goes, that's just, and he cusses me. That's shit. I don't like that, This one, I said, look, you're not going to offend me, but it's not a Cuban cigar, but I thought maybe it'd be interesting if you try this, and so he did, and his response was, man, I really like this.
He sat back with it too. I mean, that's the body language there too. He starts off, he's doing this, he's puffing on it, and like maybe his third puff, I noticed that, if I recall correctly, third or fifth puff in, he kind of like sits back on the couch he was on. He's just like starts looking at it. That's how you can tell that he was
taking an interest.
Yeah.
Now, does Alex make the Ramon Leones that's in Cuba?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's just interesting that, because it's the first time that the Ramon name is being used again for...
outside of Cuba.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So General Cigar owns it, but yeah.
So
it was cool. I mean, and so just to kind of throw out some of the other things, like Alex is in his early 30s.
correct.
So he is a level 9 roller at a very young age.
Correct.
He's got this opportunity. You talk to this guy and he really wants to start a business. Like he wants to have his own shop. He wants to, he's trying, and he's also trying to, go abroad. I don't think anyone really is listening that would get anyone in trouble.
Well, he's trying to come to the United States.
Yeah, he's trying to go.
He's working on a visa through the Mexican consulate to get to the United States. He wants to come, and he wants to, he's got, friends that he's met over the years down in Cuba, and he'd love to come up here, and he'd love to experience the cigar scene, but he's got all the incentive in the world for, even if he leaves Cuba, to go back, right?
Yeah.
Because he's got a pretty, by Cuban standards, a very nice job, and he's obviously doing very well, and he's a young guy, and he's got family there.
He's got attention too. I mean, like you said, he's won awards.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking that, like Brad and Mark have done of ordering cigars per trip.
Yeah.
There are others, like he was talking like these different princes, from Middle East, right? Yeah. And they're either coming over themselves or sending people over and buying 200 at a time or whatever it is, which doesn't seem like that much. Like, I don't know, but it's custom rolls, so it's like there's only a certain amount of volume that you can pump out. But the other one was that Alex was really kind of geeked out on. You could tell himself he wanted to show it off a little bit, which rightfully so. Michael Jordan sends down a guy twice a month, flies down, and one of the stops he's making is for Alex's cigars.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you got Jordan smoking.
And they're huge too. You guys said they were massive cigars,
Yeah, it's
right?
a custom size.
It's like 7 or 8 inches. Yeah, it's a
By
big cigar.
are they more like Lancero types, or are they
No,
thick cigars?
they're thick. They're like a
56
double,
or so?
They're like a double Churchill or something. It's a massive cigar.
Yeah.
Now you said Alex.
Looks normal in Michael Jordan's hands.
Yeah.
Like a trigger, right?
Now you said Alex was a level 9 roller. How old is he?
33, something like that. Yeah.
So how many level 9 rollers are there? Do you guys know of? And then how many levels are there? Is it up to? There's 9.
And then there's
There's a master roller, but
Yeah.
there's only 3 that are in Cuba.
That are master rollers.
Yeah.
Is there a handful of level 9s? Then we could say.
I don't know the statistics there.
Yeah.
We've heard numbers that vary from 12 to 20.
Yeah.
It's that low.
Yeah.
Under 100, you'd be pretty comfortable saying.
Yeah, easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not that many.
That's just interesting. I mean, that's a hell of an accomplishment for, I would say.
You got talent, and again, he.
Because how old are the master blenders? I mean, are they in their 50s?
Most of them are, they're retired. They're in their 50s, 60s.
So he's got 20 years on some of these guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so the master ones are the ones that are doing some of the limited,
Right.
highly sought after. These are rolled by this person.
And they roll maybe for, they might roll for the Castros, or they might roll for dignitaries, or they might, but most of what they do now is strictly on demand. They don't, they're not in a shop necessarily rolling all the time.
Yeah.
Something I was wondering about, you may know, Brad. Roller and blender, are those different skills, or is that combined into the roller skill?
Most rollers are blending a recipe that's been presented to them, but in the case of people like Alex that are running shops and rolling their own, they're also blending, right? They're picking the leaves, they're getting they're choosing the tobacco from the government. And if you notice, he's got in his shop, he's got bales or bags of leaves that he keeps that he's chosen, right? And so, and then there's times when he runs out of a particular supply and he can't, it might be the binder or whatever, and he doesn't substitute, he stops, and he waits for that particular leaf to come back, make it available to him before he rolls again.
Nice.
Yeah.
We had a couple questions of, actually Tanya asked us a question. She's on
Tanya.
here right now.
Good.
She was asking us a question, what's one cigar that's available here that is comparable to, what we're smoking tonight? Is there one that you would say, I mean, the complexity of something like this, is, I mean, the
That's a great
closest thing,
question.
I mean, the closest thing I could say is like, maybe like a Monte Cristo Espada or something like that, or, you know, even the VS Gold, maybe, but. I mean,
Nobody's gonna believe you on that, you're biased.
well, I am biased.
No, but I don't think
honestly,
you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong.
I think it's
Thank you.
really, really hard to try to compare and create like a similarity for something that is a custom roll. You know what I mean? And you know, I know that we have a lot of guests and people that want to be smoking something like what we're smoking, but it's kind of hard to do with something like this.
That's a good question. It's a tough one too, Tanya. Probably, yeah, maybe the Monte Cristo Espada. That might be.
I can see that a little bit.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
That is a tough. I was getting water there. I can see the Espada a little.
Yeah. Not the craft code. I don't know what else. Maybe the Fuente 858. The Maduro.
I wouldn't say that. No. It's like a light, and maybe it's the size, right? And that's reminding me of it. Is the Grand Cajonu.
Well, I was going to say the brown label Tatuaje.
Brown,
but
yeah. So same ballpark.
It's not as deep. Like
No.
this is more complex. The brown label hits a few of kind of the surface notes and all that.
The way this is smoking too is what kind of like it's the whole thing. Like it's not quite the same as a Grand Cajonu, but the way it's smoking is somewhat similar. The feel of the cigar, there's some I think notes there, but again, it's not quite as.
What about
Use the term rich, like it's not
Yeah,
as
the
like
depth isn't there is what I
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thinking.
what about a La Conquista? I mean, the La Conquista is kind
there's
of
some similarities. Yeah.
I think the La Conquista, the construction is good, but it's very ashy. It flakes a lot. And this, if we didn't ash this, I bet it would just stand straight up.
Yeah,
We
probably
wouldn't have an issue with it. You know what I mean? Especially with that half leaf
Flavor-wise, that's probably a pretty good choice too, right?
Yeah.
The La Conquista. Yeah, I would say so.
Get a little bit of that in.
By Grant Bonnet.
It's an interesting question. The challenge is that that's what makes Cuban cigars so sought after, is because of the flavor of the tobacco is so different from other regions of the world. It's tough to replicate the taste of a Cuban. Some can do it, to some degree, but it's not.
Well, yeah, you're dealing with completely different soils, different climate is similar if you look at like weather, but as far as the way the island is and where they're growing it and how even on the island, it's all the stuff that's coming out to the Cuban market as far as cigars is done in Pinar del Rio, which is actually on the
22
far west side of the island. And everyone thinks Cuba looks really small.
It's huge.
Yeah, they said it's 900 miles across or something like that. Yeah. You think about how far that gets you and how far of a drive that is in the United States.
It's DC to Miami, I think, is about
that about right?
About the equivalent.
Yeah. So, and again, you got to think too. It's funny, on a side note, is the highways actually weren't bad when we were down there. Definitely different, but I mean, I guess
I think also there weren't a lot of cars, not like we have here. So
No.
plus no salt, all that. So
yeah, the traffic in the cities is a little rough, but as far as on the highways, you're just scooting along the whole time.
Yeah, and every now and then you got to slow for an ox or a horse-drawn carriage or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
Or you have the people on the side of the road.
there are random bus stops on the highway. But,
there's literally also hitchhikers that just come out of a field on the highway, which was really interesting. Like you're just driving, and it's like
children of the corn.
Yeah, you're just where did you come from? Were you on another road? I don't know. I don't have a map. Are you on the next highway over that someone dropped you off there, and now you gotta kick it back? What's happening right now? It's interesting.
What I find really cool about Cuba and the culture is the old cars. I'm a car guy, so especially seeing the pictures that you had, Steve, and even Roy, your driver had a 57 Chevy,
56 Bel Air,
56 Bel Air that
with a Hyundai 4-cylinder diesel.
With a matching Hyundai transmission.
But it looked gorgeous. The car looked gorgeous, but it's all pieced together, and he kind of had a tablet. Yeah.
First of all, the fuel, and they still burn leaded fuel, so that smell. If you remember when you were kids, when you fire up a car and you get that smell off the exhaust, right?
Yeah.
We don't get that much anymore because it's all unleaded. There, it's still leaded, and then diesel is really heavy too. So yeah, it's interesting.
one thing interesting that Roy told us is he understands the value of those cars in the U.S., but he said in the U.S., all original means costs more.
Yeah.
In Cuba, it means I'm not buying it because if it's all original, it means it doesn't work anymore.
Mm.
Well, they don't have the ability to keep it up, to get original parts or any of that stuff. So.
Yeah, so there's more work to be had. And he also did mention the whole difference between diesel and gasoline. Like to get gasoline down there, it's a lot more expensive too.
It's tougher. Yeah.
So you think about these people that are driving, and that was an interesting thing too, is that how many people were actually driving, like either motorcycles or cars and everything. I'm thinking to myself, these either are like Roy, who his was passed down from his grandfather. He bought it new, if I recall, or close to new. And it's 3 generations now that he's driving this thing. But there's people driving all over the place, and you're just like, then you find out what these vehicles are actually costing.
Right.
You know, like Alex's Fiat that which is another driver that they've used, and he's super nice and was storing cigars for Brad. I mean, it's like, again, networking is insane there. But he was saying now it's probably worth like 45,000 kook.
Right.
So then you think about that, and you think about what people are making, even the private business owners, and it's like there's a lot of blind eye type of governing in certain areas, it seems.
I'm sure.
I think the tourist trade, the government is more lax because they know that they need an infusion of capital and cash. So the tourist industry is really flourished. So Cubans are allowed to use their homes as Airbnbs. They're allowed to establish restaurants, eateries.
Yep.
They're allowed to become drivers, and drive people. And the government knows that that's going on, and they effectively allow it to happen because they know that it's got to happen in order to get people. It's not just Americans. Obviously, Europeans come there quite frequently.
Yeah.
There are a lot of Europeans when we're there. You get people from South America and Central America that come frequently. So
It's just interesting because, he showed me the equivalence of Craigslist. Roy did, and we were at Club Habana. And, he showed me the prices of these cars. And again, initially my response is
how do you afford it?
this is, first of all, allowed on your internet. You know what I mean, down there, if you are on a Wi-Fi card in a certain area. But he's scrolling through it, and it's I'm looking at 50,000 kook.
Well, one thing
I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know if I'm going to get approved for a loan for $50,000 car right now. Let alone, how do you get that kind of financing stockpiled up in Cuba to be like, hey, I want to come take a look at your car for 50,000 kook?
right.
Because you're not going to a bank and getting finance. You're not, I don't imagine there's a whole lot of that. I mean, you're literally just
a lot of cigars.
Something people may not know that are listening, the average income in Cuba is what, 25 to 30 kook a month?
$30 US dollars, yeah.
Yeah, so 50,000 is it's unattainable for the average population. So to make the point of what you're saying, it might as well be 50 million. Based on our average salary.
And yet you see these exchanges
yet
going
it's
on.
still happening, so.
That's what I'm saying, it's astonishing. Let me save this.
Yep. Facebook Live we're saving right now. We'll come back to it real shortly.
Too hot.
No, I'm good. Are you paused?
Yeah, pause on there,
I left my windows down out there.
Okay.
Oh,
You can open that garage door if you want. Let the smoke out a little bit. Care if I do those keys real quick?
It's going to be super loud, but it's fine,
Sorry, Facebook Live, we're going to let the smoke out of this place real quick, so bear with us.
This is the time, too. Real quiet garage door opener I have. We got 12, 13 people listening right now. I want to say too, if you guys have any other questions, I see some of them coming through. If you have any questions, this is a good time to really kind of just get them out there. start a wind tunnel here.
Got it.
Although the feed on here is definitely a little clearer now.
Yeah.
Now that I can hear. You can hear the garage door opener, Ray. All right. Might use your.
Ooh, it cool down outside?
It's nice out there.
It is
Yeah.
nice.
It was smoking
Yeah.
in here, man.
We don't have to worry about noise. We just keep the garage door open.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Noise?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just-
I gotcha.
A lot of
Birds
ambient
and
noises out there.
crickets. All listeners know. There's great country fresh. Kylie, sorry, Kylie.
So Kylie in that Sherman rep, she says headphones plus garage door equals middle finger. Just blew her eardrum. Sorry, Nate too. Sorry about that, guys.
Ready? So with you guys going down there, you know, Steve, Brandon, we've talked numerous times on, you know, the podcast since, you know, you guys were down there. But
Yeah.
I wanted to know, and I'm sure like the listeners want to know, and you too, Brad, like what was like one experience that you guys could pick out of the times that the time that you guys went down there, and Brad, I'll probably have you go last about like what was one like
Let me go first. please.
moment that you
Mongo.
that was the best
That was
experience.
a highlight.
You can get that here if you play your cards right.
So maybe that's what we should talk
Explain
about.
Mongo.
I think we've talked about it a couple times, but yeah, I think explain Mongo. What's is that your alter ego?
Oh,
Brandon?
no.
I was just drunk in a pool, that's all. Drunk in a pool, and I heard Steve and Brad fucking around, and I wanted to keep playing in the pool, so I was like, all right, I'll just keep doing this.
So the story is Brandon's in the pool, and there were these floating chlorine dispensers, right?
Yeah, there's two of them.
Two of them floating around, and so Brandon's on the deep end, and he's got his arms up on the edge of the pool, and he's watching these things as they're floating towards him, right?
They had a tendency to come at you.
To come at you. So
So they had a tendency to go to that side of the pool.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
They had no, you said come at you.
Well, it was coming at me.
You were the only one. He was the only one in the pool.
So it turned into Steve and I narrating like we were natural, like nature.
Steve
nature.
Irwin.
Yeah, Steve Irwin or yeah. And so we would narrate, just straight face narrate. It was funny. And Brandon played it up, you know, so he was tracking these things and he'd move over. And as soon as they get close enough that he could get his hand on one, he literally would grab it and then launch it to the other end of the pool.
That's what made us start videotaping it, because he was just doing it, and then
Yeah.
Brad and I were sitting by him, and we were like kind of talking about it, and I pull out my phone and I start just kind of videotaping, and it's funny because I'm like, man, you look at him and he's just kind of waiting for these things, and all of a sudden, and I see out of the corner of my eye, Brad like leans forward, so I turn the camera to him, and he goes full blown accent, and
Steve
I
Irwin.
said, what do you have going on here?
So you know what's going on, right? And at one point he got out of the pool, and I said, see there, look, he's almost human-like.
The best part about the video
Get in the
is
pool.
the best
there
part
he goes.
about the video was Brandon like having his arms like all the way up on like, the
Yeah.
side of the pool, with like all the way hunched down. So if you guys like from the video angle,
Yeah.
it's just you see the pool and then the pool side, and it's just Brandon's head and his arms.
Good.
And then
Like
when that thing comes close, he just like freaks out and chucks it to the
It
corner.
was just like a zoo pen, right? You know,
Yeah, like a gorilla pit.
gorilla cage is what it looked like. Anyway, so.
And on top of that, he was staying in the pool house, so like he went into his house for a little bit, like he went inside the cave, you know, and then he comes back out, lights up a cigarette.
That's when I said he's almost human-like. So
This was also 3 a.m.
Yeah.
This was also 3 a.m. on one of the nights.
Do you think that was your
So
best
Actually,
experience?
we were drinking
it's
blue that night.
Funny.
We were, yeah.
What was your best experience, then, Brad? Like, so you've been down there, you said 7 times.
So
This will be the seventh.
probably and it's absolutely like some of the listeners. I've traveled all over the world. One of my most favorite places in the entire world is in Pinar del Rio, in Hector Luis's farm. I absolutely love it there. It is just, the air is fresh. Tobacco, the people are fantastic. The food is, of course, by the time you get out there, you're starving, so they make play into it.
It's a 3-hour drive from Havana, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're in it. You're in middle of Cuba.
You're middle of nowhere, in a tobacco field with a farmer who is renowned for his leaves, and he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet when he's around. He comes around, he'll sit with you. He doesn't speak much of any English. His farmhand, the main guy, Osvaldo, is another guy that's just very. He speaks very good English, and just they're very cordial, and they'll sit with you, and they love to share the love of the leaf and what they do and how the crops are coming, and but it's just a beautiful setting out there. It's just an absolutely gorgeous place on earth. It's just unbelievable.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, so I thoroughly enjoy that one when I go. Yeah.
And it was interesting going to that one because we stopped by Robaena first. So
that was amazing too. That
not knowing what we're getting into
won't happen.
Was that the one that Mark wanted to go to stop by it, and you guys had no idea?
He wanted to say hi. He just wanted to stop, say hi, and it turned into a lot more than that, which is amazing.
But even the entrance into the Robaena compound, like going into the Hector Luis's, like he's I guess had to up it a little bit because he won so many awards, and it was like 10 years in a row he was like the grower of the year, farmer of the year, and so he's kind of like churched it up a little bit.
A little more commercial. You feel more like you should be there, like you're going to a place you should be.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then you go to like the Robaena one, and you're driving down this barely dirt road that's just beat to shit, and there's just random people. Like you're driving by some like little
hovel.
Yeah, but there's just like
hovel.
No, like a house that looks like nobody lives there, but somebody lives there.
Yeah, but then there's just like people standing on it, and they're just like kind of like eyeballing you as you go by. Like it's almost like they are part of the compound, and if
they probably are.
The wrong person's coming up that drive. I mean, it was a long like.
Well, it's a plantation compound,
yeah.
so I mean it's third world. Yeah, there's the farmhands there, and they live in a certain spot, and I mean they're going to look out for their area. Not that they were, going to come after us, but you've got the sense that if these people decided that they don't want us here anymore,
you're out.
You're not there anymore.
We're not there anymore. And nobody knows.
So we went to that one, and yeah, that was the long conversation. But then like you go to Hector Luis's, and it's just not saying once you were in the Robaena, it was nice, like that nice little like area to sit.
No, it was a beautiful area,
nice,
but the entryway was a little more questionable.
Is that his first name,
Robaena is
Alejandro.
That's the full last name. Robaena.
Yeah.
Robaena.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pronounced.
Yeah.
So
I was just making sure.
It's a 5th generation family, 1845 or around about 1845.
Yeah.
And so now Hirochi, his name is Hirochi, is the active farm, I guess lead. He runs the family business.
Plantation.
And Don Carlos became Don Carlos recently because Don Alejandro, which is the 3rd generation, he passed away recently. He was kind of the face. He was in every cigar shop as far as his pictures and
he was the face of Cuban cigars.
Really, yeah, really interesting on that one. Brad didn't go to the farms that day because of the drive and the tightness of the car and all that stuff. But they had like a wooden Don Alejandro sitting on one of the rocking chairs.
I thought that was real when we walked in because of the shadows and stuff. Like it was so
really
lifelike and still. Because I glanced at it, I didn't want to stare.
Who's this old guy?
I didn't want to stare at him, so I just caught it out of the corner of my eye, like, oh, old guy sitting at the table, just so I know what's going on.
It was this beautiful sculpture of him, but what I found really interesting as a side note, and bounced around a little bit, but when they were sitting there, so this sculpture is sitting in this chair. You had Don Carlos sit down next to him, and the affection, even to the statue, was amazing. Like,
I noticed that too.
When he was like talking about him, he literally like reached out and like put his hand on, like Don Carlos did. And then you had Ivan, who's the tour guide, and kind of like it seems like he's a translator. Like he's a big part of the business. He's sitting like kind of behind it, and there were a lot of times like he's like putting his arm around the sculpture.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's not that he's there, but it's like there's so much
the affection for him was
oh
evident.
my gosh, it was like they're talking and he literally like he put his hand on his like and he like looks at the statue. I mean it's they're not dealing with the loss all that well. I mean he's sorely missed it seems like. So it's really interesting.
Was that like your favorite experience being there, Steve?
It was like I've been asked that question since being back, and it's really tough because it is an overload going down just the one time so far. That was probably based on what I've heard from their previous trips. Definitely one of the more unique circumstances because I think I mentioned it. You want to try this?
Sure. Yeah, we want to try. Bacardi 8 is our next rum of the evening.
Yeah. So we're gonna try the Bacardi 8, which is available in the States. It's tougher to find just because I don't think it's very popular. But
was that the one that Andy brought back?
Yeah,
from
this is
Puerto
the
Rico?
bottle that he brought back, and I actually found another one, and I've been sipping on that. I've really enjoyed it. But it's interesting to do that after this Havana Club.
I mean, they're both really good.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, like the first night, like we tried that Havana Club. I was over here, Steve, and we were going from whiskey to rum. It's just complete. Like I would not suggest like drinking whiskey and then going to rum.
Yeah.
Because it's just like sensory overload, and you like have no idea. Like it's like water.
Dramatic.
Almost.
Yeah.
And I think I'll say I have a newfound love for rum. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's
Appreciation,
interesting.
yeah. But yeah, back to the story. Going to the Robana farm. Just stopped by to say hi. The last time that Brad was there with Aaron and someone else on the shop. Anyways,
Mike Turrell.
Mike,
yeah.
So they went down this whole plantation road and got stared at and all that stuff, and then they get there and they're basically like, no visitors today, and they just turned away. And so they all kind of had this little bit kind of soreness towards that.
Oh yeah.
Fuck that guy, I'm not going back there, to be treated like that. We walk up and Don Carlos is out there and Mark's got some sort of a relationship built there because they own the Fifth Avenue store where Mark has a locker. Mm-hmm. So he's seen him in there several times. Well, we get out there and sure enough he comes out and we sit down, offers us coffee, and then Hirochi comes in and sits down and offers us a cigar, and then it's a beer, and then it's 2 hours at least later after just talking about everything.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was just this impromptu, and it's like, I don't know how big of celebrities these guys are in the cigar industry, but I mean, they're pretty
well known.
Pretty well known. So
it was probably Don Carlos too, right? Because Don Carlos is the older gentleman. He's just he's and if you see him in the Fifth Avenue shop in Havana, Fifth Avenue is in the Embassy Row area, right? And anytime you see him in there, even if he doesn't know you, he makes a point to come over and shake your hand and say hello, and he's nice. Just a pleasant guy. So my sense is that, not saying that Hiroshi wouldn't do it, but my guess is that because Don Carlos was there, there's a deference being paid to Don Carlos, right?
Probably.
So Don Carlos is, if you come all that way from Havana to come see their farm, he's going to spend some time with you to say hello and make sure you get a cup of coffee and a cigar and
it's amazing.
Enjoy yourself. Yeah.
It's just when I think about it, I say it out loud. We went out to see the farms, didn't know what to expect. Kind of the tour, maybe some food, maybe smoke a cigar or whatever, see some stuff. But it ended up that like Brandon and my first time down there, it's the three of us, Roy our driver, who's kind of hanging out in the background, and then you got one of the biggest families on their 5th generation just sitting there on a Sunday or whatever it was, I forget what it was, but it's just on a random day, and that's it. And we sat there on a Cuban farm, right, talking to the people that operate it and have operated it for over 100 years. And it's just guys from Westerville, Ohio, just sitting there shooting shit with these guys, and we're talking about the tinderbox, we're talking about Nicaraguan tobacco, we're talking about Cuban tobacco, we're talking about the different seed strains. Like, it was like almost like sitting around talking about cigars here, but you're talking with people that have been doing this for generations and are like, there's probably a ton of people that would have loved to have an opportunity to sit down around this this table in rocking chairs that almost like kept falling back because there were these giant rocking chairs, and to have that kind of hospitality was phenomenal.
But that's amazing.
And unique.
That's the amazing thing about the Leaf, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's worldwide. You know, cigar smokers generally can find somebody, no matter where you go. If you're in a cigar shop or you're Cuba, where it's part of their industry, you will connect with people.
Yeah.
Through the Leaf.
Well, that's what we talk about like all the time with the shop. Like,
sure. Yeah.
if you know, Steve didn't work at the Tinderbox, if Brandon didn't work at the Tinderbox like before I was there, you know, there's no way that you guys would have had the experiences that you had down there in Cuba without knowing Mark and Brad and having the relationships with you guys and having, you know, all the camaraderie that has basically been brought up within the Tinderbox.
Right.
You know, it's kind
Sure.
of, it's incredible, really.
Yeah.
Especially like for someone new like me. You know, I'm only like a year and a half or 2 years in. I mean, the first time I met you, Steve, was only about 2 years ago.
That's right.
And
God love you.
Worst 2 years of his life.
well, I remember the first time. I mean, not too long after I met you, I came up and hang out, and you know, we were sitting there, and you introduced me to Brad. And I remember we were sitting there at Fido, and Brad.
I thought we were talking about the best times that we'd had.
That was a great time though, Brad. Like, then you like pour me or get a pour of like Redbreast like 21 or whatever the hell it was. It was really good.
Brad's
Very
locally
gracious.
famous for being like, you ever had this?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. Can we get
6?
all of it? Just all of it. I want all of it right now. So these guys never had it, and I love it.
Yeah, just try it.
But
if you don't like it, I'll drink it.
But you're right, Brad. Like,
Yeah, you do say that too.
the community that I like that. The community that surrounds the Leaf. Like there's no cap on like what can be said or like who you can meet or I mean it's just unbelievable.
It doesn't matter where you go.
Yeah.
That's absolutely. Brandon, how about you? What was your favorite?
As far as memorable, it'd have to be the same day. You know, going to that
To the farms and Pinot Noir.
that experience, like meeting the Rovellina family, like I mean, it was almost like Alejandro was there with his statue, the affection everybody was showing him. Then you had Ivan there translating when he needed to, making sure the conversation flowed.
Yeah.
You had Don Carlos and Hirochi all hanging out. Like, to meet all of those people, and then in the same day go and meet Hector Luis, who is Farmer of the Year the last 10 years in a row.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's a big day. I mean, that's a big day as far as Cuban cigars go. And then in addition to that, one thing that I really liked that was not related to meeting anybody was driving there, seeing the country.
Yeah.
Because we spent most of our time in Havana, and Cuba's beautiful. You can see these mountains on either side of the highway. You know, there's all these farms. There's these people working in the farms. Kind of an old school style to it with oxes and shit. These tractors. Just seeing that different world that we were in, and seeing that it's not just the city. Like, it's a different world in the whole country.
Yeah, a lot of beautiful land.
Beautiful land.
Island, really.
You know, mountains and things. Like, it was just getting there was beautiful. The experience there was amazing, and something you probably couldn't plan if you wanted to. You know, it was just that whole day was the most memorable, I think.
Can you touch on something, Brandon, that we talked about, like when you got back from the trip? Like, you said to me that it was honestly interesting, and it kind of goes towards a, like, not like a serious note, but something along the lines of, you were saying that, you know, it's tough to see the people that live in like the third world countries such as Cuba, but without that kind of, I guess, economy, you wouldn't be able to see the old ways of doing things.
I know what you're getting at, and I actually thought about avoiding it.
Okay, well,
in order to not take it deeper, I can throw it out there. Because it doesn't have to go that deeper, but
I just find
Just dip your toe in that rabbit hole a little bit.
and then let the listeners and
don't go
viewers
full
like.
Mongo in the deep and throwing shit around.
I just when you said that, it just kind of.
I think I know what you're talking about, and I'll throw it out because it is something that has stuck with me a bit just considering, it's a matter for consideration, I think.
Goes back to morals, right?
It could, and that's why I thought maybe I'll steer it off, but I'll throw it out if you guys want to pick it up, take it somewhere, or whatever. What I was thinking of was, I love the experience being down there. The fact that our dollar goes so far down there allows that experience, and then the fact that the people are still stuck in the old ways also allows that experience. It creates that environment in which we can go and say, this is amazing, like, it's beautiful, I love seeing this, I love coming to some place so different. But at the same time, we get to leave and come back to the first world, and we get to come back to everything that we have here, whereas they don't. Yeah. So they're still there. And so it created somewhat of a moral dilemma in my head. Like, I don't want Cuba to change because I love going there and I love experiencing it, but I know a lot of the people that have to stay there would really like Cuba to change.
It's really would, yeah.
So, anyway, is that what you were, is that the thing you were thinking of?
Yeah, I find it interesting that, because I know exactly what you mean, being, so that I went to Italy and going to Spain and stuff like that, even though that those...
slightly wealthier.
Yeah, they're definitely, they have a lot more money, but definitely when you get outside the country and stuff, or outside the cities in Barcelona, and if you're in Italy, you get outside of Florence and Rome and stuff like that, it's some sort of like, it's like that. Mm-hmm. It's, you wouldn't be able to...
Old world.
Yeah.
That's a good term.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to experience the old country of these ancient civilizations, really.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think that having Cuba opened up, right? So Cuban people, by and large, and I think you guys heard this, they want a relationship with, and I think we touched on this the last time that we spoke about Cuba was back in the spring.
Yeah.
By and large, Cubans very much want to have a normalized relationship with the United States because they know that there is so much wealth and natural resource and et cetera, that is only 90 miles away from their shore. They know that, and they know that that's a ticket to a better way of doing things or a better way of living. Just the basics. Light bulbs. When you're on the island and you're looking for a salad, there's a handful of restaurants that might have a rocket leaf, but not. God love you can find an iceberg head of lettuce. It just doesn't exist, right? That kind of stuff. So they know that the very basics of the way they live could be improved dramatically, but I don't know that they would necessarily convert all things, into a completely industrialized way of life or immediately modernize. I just don't think that would happen.
Yeah.
But the point that they make, which I find very interesting, is that they also are keenly aware that they're a very poor country and that they have limited ability to create wealth, right, from a natural resources or production off the island. They know that, and because of that, they know that they have to connect with another country or an economy that they can participate in or in most cases supplement from, right? Take a supplement from. And their fear is that just like the Russians back in the 50s, who had a very strong interest in that island for military reasons, they're worried that another country, you pick it, they'll become relations will get developed, and they'll be influenced by that country, and they'd much rather be influenced by Americans in the country just north of them.
Yeah.
And they it's amazing when you talk to them. They're fully aware of their station in life. They're fully aware of the wealth that America certainly has, and but I don't think that they would. There's so many things in their socialist ways that they would not want to give up, and so I think you would still see certain aspects of the way that the government is in play today. As long as the guys that are in power now, it's not going to change dramatically. But the reality is even if they could wave a magic wand, they would tell you they wouldn't get rid of. They'd still be wanting to pay 50% of their income, or 60 or 80%, so that they can continue with child care for the kids, free education, medical care. You know, they want all those different things to continue in their country.
They take a lot of pride in, from, you know, like when we were driving with Roy and also Alex, it was very interesting to get their perspective on things. You know, there's a ton of pride in their education system. There's a ton of pride in their healthcare. There's a ton of pride in a lot of the programs that, you know, we as Americans, you look obviously on and not to get down that rabbit hole of as far as like the communist ways, but and maybe they put on a good face for tourists come in a little bit, but I think the people that you guys have surrounded yourselves with and that we were fortunate enough to be around, they actually do have a lot of pride and a sense of identity with the way things are as far as what you're saying. And it's not even the fact that I don't think they mind it or they want to do it, it's just they're so ingrained in it that to a certain extent, they want more. Like, you know, talking to Alex and Commodoro, you know, saying he wants to be able to own his business and do all that stuff, but they only allow certain people to do businesses in certain arenas. Don't start a cigar shop because that's not open to the public to run.
But to make the conversation balanced, they don't know any other way.
Correct.
So they've never experienced a full-on free economy or a full-on democracy. They don't. And so if you wonder if they were immersed in that for a period of time, would they have a different opinion about things? And my guess is they would, right? But,
well, you know, they may be primed for it too. If their education system is as good as it seems to be, and then you turn them loose in a free market, they might buy in 5 years as they see all this stuff just build and build.
That's my point, right? The people you're talking with, when they say that they want certain aspects that we would find to be, gosh, you know, at what cost, right, or whatever the case may be, they've never experienced the other side of that coin, right? They don't have that ability to work as hard as they can and make something, and when they do, like even if they have money, they really can't show it, right? They're suppressed from being able to really show it.
Kind of like an institutionalization.
Yeah. So, you know, you almost have to take that into as part of the conversation, realizing that they don't have that, so there's no way that they have that perspective.
Yeah. My mom actually had, like, Lori Sanders on our chat, you know, through our live, she said something about how even parts of the United States, like if you get away from the big cities, it can be like that as well. Where, you know, especially down, you know, make fun of me as long as you, or as much as you'd like, but we talk about like Norris Lake a lot, you know, or I do. Sure. But it's like if you go around that area.
Where's that at?
It's like just south of the Kentucky and.
So you're in Appalachia.
Yeah, so if you take 75 all the way down and you get to the bottom of Jellicoe Hill.
There are still people living in cabins.
Yeah, I mean, and they don't know any other way. That's the way they were raised, that's the way they grew up. They don't believe that they have any other opportunity in that.
They're happy and they may not care.
Yeah, but it's just interesting that like that perspective, you know, still is the same here. Sure. Even with the opportunities that we are granted, you know what I mean?
I'll say going, especially being in Havana and having Brad and Mark as like our tour guides, I'd say, you know, like kind of like running the trip in a sense. They open go here, here, and here. That took a part of it out where we didn't have to plan and like really do a lot of research. But at the same time, our experience down there was, and this is how I always frame the thinking, is where we were, even in like the hotels, they're beautiful. There's like you can walk down the alleys of like old Havana and it's not beautiful.
Rubble.
But we're still looking at it as like scenery. You know what I mean? But then you think about like all these people that are, you know, and it's a lot of service industries also, like a lot of high-end things. Like the people working those service industries don't necessarily go home to the same big houses as the people that they're serving, right? So you think about like what the living conditions really are when you're not at Club Havana or the Partagas store, you know what I mean? And they are, they're making 25 kook or 25 whatever dollars a month, and they get their sanctioned 5 pounds of rice and beans from the government, and you know all that stuff. But when they go, no air conditioning, and it's Cuba. I mean, it's like they have like some of them have like 3 sets of outfits. You know what I mean, as far as clothes to wear. They're doing laundry constantly because they can't afford to buy more clothes. But when you see people walking around the streets, you never think, especially in like Havana, like they're walking up and down the streets and it's not all tourists. I mean, there's locals there, and they like. Brad has this whole thing with Roy, the driver down there. He shows up at the airport to pick us up, and he's driving us around. And he's in a uniform, and I mean, I'm thinking to myself again, like, does he have one? Does he have two? Does he have a handful of uniform? I don't know. Like, that's what you kind of have to really try to wrap your head around what's actually happening behind the scenes, as opposed to what we saw when we were down there. I mean, I think that's anything, right? I mean, I went to the DR, I went to Jamaica. You're on this beautiful resort, and all these people are working there, and they're in uniform and all that stuff. I don't know if the resort's providing it or what, but then it's like, where do they go home to type, in that third world country afterwards?
Yeah, that's what I mean by the basics, right?
Yeah.
So the story, I think it was Sonny's mother was trying to cook a Sonny dinner for chicken, and she had to go to 4 different shops to get enough chicken
That's a great story.
to make a dinner for the family because they're big on Sunday dinners and things like that. But that's what I mean by the basics, right? If you infuse that, they yearn for that. They want that ability to get to produce. They want the ability to have access to water. They want the ability to have just every batteries for crying out loud, right? That's a big deal to them, right? If they have to go get a battery somewhere, it's a big damn deal to find a battery, right? Just stuff like that, But then you get above that. I don't know that they necessarily want a huge change in the natural resources that are coming off the island. I think they very much want to preserve that, So
Nate had a good question. He asked, and before I say this, I know that the majority, like all of us around the table, are good guys. Depending, it doesn't matter like what we make, financially. But he asked, like, did the Cuba trip, does it ever make you guys appreciate the things you have here in the U.S.? Like,
sure, absolutely.
You go, like, when you guys went down there, was there things that?
Sure, yeah. I'll give you a real, for example. Right, so tomorrow, there's the driver you're talking about, Alex. He had made a friend with a gentleman in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah. The guy's a cyclist, an avid cyclist, as is Alex. He was a national cyclist on the Cuban team years ago. Long story short, the basics of getting like cycling supplies, right? So inner tubes, air pumps, gloves, helmets, that sort of stuff. Very difficult for Alex to get that stuff. So this guy in Salt Lake, through their communications, had agreed, hey, next time I come down, I'll bring you some supplies, some stuff I have around the house I'm not using, some of it maybe used, whatever, but whatever I got. Well, he's not coming for another year or so. So Alex connected me with the guy. So he sent me a box. I got it last week, right? So I got a box of cycling supplies that's now in a duffel bag, and I'm going to take that to Alex, right? So when you say, does it make you appreciate? It does. Like that very basic stuff. Like you think about if you're a cyclist here in the United States and you blow a tire and you need a new inner tube, you go to one of 15 different cycling shops around, or Walmart. You go get a damn inner tube, right?
And you might be annoyed because you got to drive 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, or worse yet, you're annoyed because you can't get on the bike for till tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And these guys down there, Alex, the driver, is waiting months to get some of these basic supplies, right?
All the while he's running that big
cycle event that they do down there. That they do. So it's that kind of stuff that make you appreciate when you're around when you go down there enough. You begin to appreciate what they do to get through what we would consider to be just basics, like just cell phone coverage or internet coverage or covers for your phones. They all have phones, right? And they don't get them out of the stores. They don't buy phones off the stores. They get them from guys like us, right? They go down and they'll say, hey, if you're coming back, if you don't mind, can you get a used phone and bring it to me and I'll pay you for it, right? Or I'll drive for you for a week if you'll bring me a phone, right? That's the way they get access to that stuff. And they'll wait months sometimes to get what, we drive over to, again, there's 30 shops here in Columbus where you can go get a cell phone, and some of it overnight, 24/7, right? So stuff like that, we have first world problems when I get to where I'm at and my internet slows down and I'm trying to figure out why I can't get the feed for DirecTV Now.
You're on the phone.
I'm like resetting buttons. I'm like, what the hell's going on with the internet, right?
I want to watch my game.
That is a first world problem. Trust me.
Yeah, we didn't see that. I mean, that's the thing, is that it was kind of a step down from, well, it's like you go to a big city, like go to visit Chicago or whatever, it's like you're not necessarily going down the wrong streets unless you go down the wrong streets. You know, you're going to Michigan Avenue to go shopping. It's like, if you live in Chicago, you don't spend your time on Michigan Avenue going shopping every weekend necessarily. You know, you got home life, you do the normal stuff, but their normal stuff, like to your point, it is completely different. I mean, Alex was wearing a pair of shoes, a pair of Chuck Taylors that Mark had brought down for him as a thank you.
Right. He loves Chuck Taylors, but he only gets them when one of the guys he knows is coming, and that could be months.
They're like 90 coupe down there.
It could be months before.
Right? Did he say that?
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, like Levi jeans, same thing. You know, it's like anything that.
And normally they're not even the real thing. They're knockoffs. They're paying $90 for a knockoff pair of Chuck Taylors.
You saw a lot of Ralph Lauren stuff for sure. You know what I mean? Like everyone's got that, and it's got to be coming from, you know, China or whatever, you know, as far as that goes. And they're getting into the island, and then it's being sold probably out of the touristy shops or whatever. Like you know, you have a guy that if you need a shirt, you go to this shop because he's gonna exchange and barter services and all that stuff. So it's interesting for sure.
But people listening are obviously cigar aficionados. They like cigars, I assume, most of the people.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I think a lot of people maybe have a bit of a fear, because I think the media doesn't really hasn't done it justice, or hasn't really been honest about it. What Barack Obama did in early 2016 is still in place. What the Trump administration did, to be clear, and you've seen it now, right? So in 16 and in early 17, there were a lot of Americans on the streets down there, not so much anymore as you guys witnessed, right? But the reality is that the Trump administration really didn't change anything. All they clarified was that they don't want Americans, and rightfully so, given our relationship and the embargo that is still in place. The president doesn't have the authority to lift that; only Congress can.
Yeah.
So what he did was clarify that if you are an American, you cannot spend money directly with the government, the security apparatus, or technology companies in Cuba. Now, by and large, you're not going to do that anyway. It would only be people that are nefarious in their actions for being down there. But the reality is that it's as easy as ever to go down, right? You book a trip, and when you check in for your flight, a lot of them now do it electronically. When you check in, you pay your $50 tourist visa. There's 13 categories. Pick one. And I tell you, if you can't find a category in the 13 that they got listed, then you probably need to go back to school and be re-educated on reading.
Or you're doing business with
I'm
electronics.
not saying that for people that have done it and said, I don't know what to pick. The reality is that if you read them and you read them correctly, that there is a category for everybody to go down there to visit Cuba. And you go, you show up at the security checkpoints in Cuba. They take half of your visa, they stamp the other half, they hand it back to you. Don't lose that. Keep it with your passport. Go in, enjoy the country, visit the people, enjoy the food, the culture. If you're a cigar lover, enjoy the cigars. Great places. The Airbnb down there are fantastic. They've done a nice job. Enjoy yourself. Come back out, and frankly, Customs Border Patrol here in the United States. I can't tell you the number of times that that I've stepped up to the Customs Border Patrol officer and they said, "Where are you coming from? Cuba? Okay, do you have anything to declare? Yeah, I've got cigars. Well, how much?" And even over the threshold, many times I'll tell them flat out. I don't lie. I just say, "Hey, I've got X number," and they go, "Okay, right, thanks. Welcome home."
Yeah.
In you go. There's no.
And it's interesting because, you know, like when we got to Atlanta, the guy didn't ask us anything.
The guy said to me, he looked at my passport for about 2 seconds, literally said, "Cool, man," and handed it back to me.
Cool, bro.
That was it. And I was just kind of like, all right.
This fear of, Trump has put a kibosh on all that is not true.
No.
It is true that the U.S. Embassy is vacated. There's only, at best, a half a dozen people there now. There's a security apparatus just to keep it.
That's a little nerve-wracking for me.
That's your only risk, and so when you go to Cuba, you have to plan a little bit, right? And it's best to go in a group or go with other people. Going solo can be a bit risky, just because if you get into trouble or you get into a health issue or something, then it becomes more of a challenge.
Well, no one knows.
Yeah, but if you got people that are with you, you can always find a Wi-Fi hotspot where you can dial out and get back in the U.S. if you have to.
Yeah.
But and yes, there's not really anybody in the U.S. embassy. So as an American, when you're down there, you mind your P's and Q's. You don't do anything that would even remotely put you in jeopardy of violating a law. You just you go down as a tourist, enjoy yourself, enjoy the environment, the people,
and they make it very easy to do
It's
that.
very easy to do that. Yeah.
Everyone seems to be nice. At least, again, the places that we went, everyone was very nice and accommodating.
That's my plug.
No, it's a good plug. I mean, for me, it was a little more nerve-wracking.
Well, sure.
I know
Going
you guys
down
were
there-
freaking out about the visas, like at the beginning.
Well,
He showed up drunk. He didn't have his yet. They hand him out at Delta.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at the gate. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, and
Other than that,
I was
they
working.
give it to you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Right,
Steve
well-
had got on the plane after one of what podcast
Had a
was that?
great
It was like
time.
28.
I had a great time getting there and talking to the Uber driver and
Yelling in the airport.
yelling in the airport. I was like, because that's the other thing is like the last couple trips, I would say the last week was like going to the DR, going to like all inclusive. So I'm going with a group, and it's like basically we're having my roommate Connor and Adrian, like it's a party. From the moment you like all hook up in the airport, it is full blown. We have a week going. Let's go. And it's like, yeah, we're a little bit obnoxious, a little bit at the airport traveling, but we always have fun. We were taking the Spirit airline or whatever, and the flight attendants dancing by us. I mean, like going with those guys, it's like that. Showing up inebriated, going to Cuba, like I was in a great mood because a month prior I had just done that trip, so I'm like ready to go. I'm excited, and it did actually help my nerves a little bit too, honestly, because leading up to it, it's not. Anytime I travel out of the country, you've done it so often, but going down these going through customs for the first time when people do it, it's a little you're a little nervous. Like I don't want to say the wrong thing. I mean, you're like, do I hold the passport with my left hand or right hand? Like, what am I you overthink a little bit. What am I supposed to do here? Going into Cuba, where Brad just explained it perfectly, that it's legal. Like, there's nothing illegal going on. But if you have someone that's been, when we were filling out our online paperwork, if you will, it's like, all right, check off people to people, do this, do that. And Mark and Brad have been very good with anyone going for the first time. So Barnes is the shop elder at Tinderbox. Sure enough, today, Mark's there showing him how to do it. He brought his laptop the day before leaving, walked him through it, and you have that where you don't have to figure out anything if you go with someone or you talk to someone that has gone. Like at this point, like Brandon or I, someone says, hey, I'm going to Cuba, it's me and my wife, me and my buddy, what do we do? And the first thing is I'll help walk you through what I know. Check out these spots. The day before, you're going to get an email from this. You just kind of rattle off all these things. And the biggest thing, I think you can say it, don't be that stereotypical American asshole where it's like you're like you go into a cigar shop and you're like, hey, give me the whatever, really give me all the bahikis you have because I've got a lot of money on me. And it's like, don't do that. No. Because if you're going to do that in Cuba, you do it in the Tinderbox also. Right. We have guys that come in and they're out of towners. We're like, yeah, how many when Andalusian Bull was really hard to find because it was the cigar of the year. Now it's the Eye of the Shark. Like, how many Eye of the Shark do you have? Because I want them all. And you're like, none. Oh man, no one's got those. And I'm like, none. No shit.
Brad bought them all.
Yeah.
I did.
And if you want to see anything, Cuba.
I will say that I will say that you know me, Steve. I don't smoke cigars down to the last inch because I think they get super bitter, harsh, and I'm finally down to my last inch on this this Bahiki blend with that extra Lajero in it, and it's still great. I mean, it's
Did you hit that spot, that super haze spot or whatever?
Yeah, it was about.
I
it was
hit
about what, 3 inches?
Yeah,
in?
yeah. I hit it shorter than the other farm rolls that we have, but it still showed up.
Is that what you gave me when you guys first got back?
It was either...
That was a custom... That wasn't brand.
Did it have a band on it?
No.
Then no, it was...
but it had a
pigtail, like a
pigtail.
tiny pigtail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was about that. It was about like
But
6
it had the same
inches.
thing. And this was much shorter, maybe because of the age, but every one of the farms that I've had, it hits that spot. And I don't know what it is. Like when I first hit it, I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And I was not into it.
It's tobacco.
No, I get that now, but
That was another part of it.
it's just, I don't know. I'd like to figure out more if there is anything more to that, but it happens down in the cigar. It lasts for maybe a half inch, and then it's gone.
And that'd be fun to go back and talk to these guys again.
Yeah.
So Lori has asked twice, do they have fresh drinking water? My response to that is, obviously there's stuff you can drink, I'm sure, if you live there, but as a tourist, bottles.
So Lori...
That's anywhere though.
Yeah, Lori...
That is anywhere. Any of the resorts you go
Any
to.
foreign
Well,
country.
Ray Chester was on earlier, right? So Ray was
on there.
Yeah, Ray can attest for this, right? When you're in mainland China, for example, you avoid drinking water out of the taps or out of you look for bottled water. Same thing in some places in Mexico, you do the same thing, right? Cuba is exactly the same, right? Their purification systems aren't nearly as robust as in the United States. So the answer is no. You don't drink the normal potable water that they have there that maybe the Cubans would be drinking. But I would tell you that there is plenty of bottled water. And what happens in the Airbnbs, usually the Airbnbs have 24/7 porters, so they have people that are looking after the house while visitors are there. And they know they're getting people from Europe and from America, etc. And what they do is they boil a lot of water, they pot boil water, and then they refrigerate it so that it's pure when you drink it. So the answer is you can find water to drink, not a problem, but just make sure that it's either bottled or you're at your Airbnb where they're purifying it before you drink it.
And that's any of the restaurants, even like the sandwich shop we went to.
Yeah,
I mean, it was you want a water, they'll bring out you a bottle.
Bottled water.
And a lot of it is that what is the Italian spring water? I've noticed.
Yeah.
So they're getting that in from. Yeah. But I mean, like I brushed my teeth with the faucet water. I mean, I wasn't like don't touch the water type thing. Don't let it touch your lips. But
you wouldn't want to drink it or ingest it, right?
no, you try not. Yeah.
And if you go to a restaurant, particularly in Havana, most of the restaurants in Havana that are catering to tourists, then you want to stay away from the little family-owned, 2 or 3 table restaurants, unless they got bottled water. But most of the mainstream restaurants in Havana, they'll pour water out of a jug, and that has also been purified, right? You're safe.
Ray actually did say, oh no ice in my drink, please, LOL. I didn't even think about that. I assume there's some filtration on the ice machines because. So what they're doing, it was like seeing like my nephew on Christmas thinking that the presents were over and he didn't get what he wanted because the first 2 places we went to didn't have ice or mint or something. So Brad, I mean, I think he cried a little bit. I mean, like no mojitos, and it was like when we showed up at the Partagas, it was like,
the ice machine was broken, or they're out of mint or whatever. But
the ice machine though that's a good point. It's not like they can just freeze trays from the tap.
No, what they
have to have an ice machine to do it.
It's not hooked up. So Ray, in the main areas, they're not hooked up to a water source. They're actually tanks. So that the water's been boiled and purified, and then they pour the water into these tanks to make the ice with.
And I'll say no one got sick off of the mojitos.
No, so food that's washed, particularly if it's cooked, you're good. If you get like a fresh salad with fruits and stuff like that, all of that water has been boiled or purified before it's used, particularly in the mainstream restaurants, because they know that they're catering to people that don't live there.
Much like the hotels, resorts you stay in any of the third world countries, you know what I mean? It's, don't ever really. Because you think about it too, a lot of those resorts that I've been to so far, you get water. I don't even think about it because you're in such a developed complex that you ask for water, they're pouring it in a glass.
Right.
So I'm sure it's much the same way. They have it all on site,
Right.
and it's all localized, and they treat it or boil it or whatever it is.
Exactly.
To the point where to anyone tourist wise,
That's right.
you're not going to leave the country and do that.
No.
It's like the whole stereotype of like, if you go to Mexico, don't drink the water. Well, yeah, don't go and just pour a glass out of the faucet in a glass and just drink it.
But
You don't want to do that.
You notice down in Pino del Rio, where you're away from the main areas of La Habana, when you order water at those farms, for example, you want water, they bring you bottled water.
Everywhere.
You're not drinking. You're not drinking tap water, and they don't even attempt or bother with trying to purify. They just keep a lot of bottled water on hand.
And that's everywhere we went.
That's
you
right.
know, the
Everywhere
whole
you go.
time.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to touch on it if we could. I mean, because I think there's I've had a lot of questions. You know, like to your point of saying about Obama, Trump, and like the travel restrictions and all that stuff. But the actual method of doing this, like what would people expect if they want to go to Cuba? Like, what are they looking at? How do you take your first step? Because I can give my part of it, but like Mark set up the house.
Easy to do.
Yeah, it's easy to do, but it's set up the house, and then Mark and Brad like basically looked at the flights for when we're going. So Brandon and I are just basically getting coached along this whole way, and it's like the flight that we took was like $450 plus $50 visa.
Right.
So call it $500.
Yeah.
The Airbnb that we were staying in for the was it 5 nights?
5 nights. $100 a piece.
It was.
Is that what it was?
It was
125, something like that.
per night.
Yeah.
It was $460 per person, 4 people. Is what we paid.
Yeah. So it's roughly $100 a night per person.
And that's it.
And you're in a home that is now that home there was some renovation going on. The one that we're going through this time has been established for quite some time. Beautiful home, 5 bedrooms, all ensuite baths, air conditioned in all the rooms. It's got its own bar and patio, not unlike what we had, right? Access to liquor. You've got a 24/7 porter like we had.
Yeah.
You've got people that are available for you in the morning and even in the early afternoon if you want breakfast and sandwiches.
Yeah, they asked, do you want breakfast?
It's all Airbnb. So if you're going to go Airbnb, easy to find.
Just normal Airbnb site.
Airbnb site. And then once you get there, the critical thing is most people immediately want to try to figure out how do I get money, right? And what I would tell you is that virtually any of the taxi drivers or any of the drivers will take American dollars. So believe it or not, you can go down with American U.S. dollars, and that is something you have to consider. You can't take your credit card or your debit cards there.
There's no ATMs.
Yeah, and even if there were, because of the embargo, U.S. institutions do not allow you to transact while you're in Cuba. So you have to take cash.
Yep.
And plan ahead. Think through, what you got to pay for if you're paying for drivers or food or cigars or entertainment or whatever. Make sure you plan that out. And it's easy to find prices. You can go on to many sites to get advice on that.
And look at reviews, like on the Airbnb also. Is like, just like any other vacation.
Exactly.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. But to get you started, you can use U.S. dollars to get from the airport to the city. And once you get to the city, there's plenty of places to exchange money. Most of the hotels will have a concierge desk that will exchange money. It'll generally cost you 13% to move $1 to a kook. And if you can find one that you make a relationship with, you can get it on 10 cents on the dollar.
Which was a great experience, by the way.
But you need to have kook and you need to have money. You need to be liquid the whole time you're there. You can't have credit cards there. Getting around is not a problem. Once you get there, you can certainly take a taxi. There's lots of cars that are marked taxi. Once you get a driver, if you query the driver and find out if they're available for a day or two, a lot of them are, and they'll charge you usually in the neighborhood is anywhere from $60 to $85 a day. You get the driver whenever you want them. They'll show up at 7 o'clock in the morning if you want to. They'll be with you the entire day. They go home when you're done midnight, whatever it is. It's a fixed fee. You again, $65 to $80 a day to have a driver dedicated to you.
Yeah,
they pick you up, drop you off wherever you want to go. Right.
Just like anything. And that's what I've noticed too is that going to certain cities or different countries, there is a level of trust there, you know what I mean? And that's where what I noticed is, again, building that relationship, even with like a random taxi driver. Like, it's okay to say, hey, I'm going to give you this much up front, and at the end of the day, I'll give you the rest. Because if they say, give it all to me up front, well, you might have a little bit of an issue on trust where it's like you might just be at 10 o'clock at night, you're finishing up at a club or whatever, or wherever you're at, and they're supposed to meet you back there. And luckily, you guys have phones that work down there, but like if it was just Brandon and I going down there, our phones don't work. We don't have any cell service, so it's like now you're getting another taxi and you've already paid this guy, or whatever it is. There's no communication. So I mean, it's all about, again, just dealing with like another person and be cautious to a point, but there is a level of trust, and they know that if it gets out that you can't trust the taxi drivers, you can't trust the exchange people, you can't trust that, people are gonna stop going. And they're not. It's not like they're bad people. It's not like they're a bunch of crooks. It's just
if you go down and you get a driver and you arrange one for several days, as you witnessed, right? We'll drive for a day or two before we even pay them. So we're always paying in arrears, right? You drive for a day and the next day you pay them for the previous day. Or in the case of Roy or Alex, sometimes we'll drive for 2-3 days and we give them all. Every 2-3 days we'll pay them.
And again, that's a relationship. If you travel there, so like if I go down again with people. And you and Mark aren't there, like I'm Facebook friends with Roy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And we're on Instagram and all that stuff. So like if that ever happens, I have a person, one of the ladies of Dallas that works at the party gift store. Her and I are Facebook friends, and she messages like, "You're welcome anytime. Thank you so much. Great meeting you." I'm like, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of genuine aspects to that, and there's also they're developing relationships also, because that's how that works. Because if they impress people like Brad and Mark that go down several times a year at this point, well, who do you think they're going to call? And I told Barnes today, I said, well, I know of one thing, that the night you guys get down there, so tomorrow night, you'll have at least 3/4 of a bottle of Havana Club 7 here, because I left that with Roy for when you guys come down. Right. Because it was open, it was like 3/4, and then
might as well take it.
Yeah, like, Roy, do you mind holding on to this?
Exactly.
Sure enough, he's like, yeah, no problem.
Yeah. The only other call out would be, back to your point about communications. Some U.S. phones will allow you to dial out depending on the carrier. The good news is that most carriers now allow you to do Wi-Fi calling, and so you just need to know. And most people can tell you where a Wi-Fi spot is. A lot of the hotels have them. You just need to get to a Wi-Fi spot, and if you get into a situation where you need to call, and again, it's not. That's what I talk about the everyday conveniences we have. We just pick up the phone and call. Yeah. There, you got to think, okay, I need to call. I need to check in with my wife, or I need to check in, or whatever. Or the times that I've been down there, I've had business calls, and I have to make sure that I plan that ahead, right, so that I'm somewhere where I can take a Wi-Fi card.
That's another aspect. Is that you have to get Wi-Fi cards.
Yeah. You buy the Wi-Fi cards, scratch off the codes, be somewhere where I can get on, and then you can do your phone calls. It's not as convenient as just picking up the phone and saying, okay, I want to put an earbud in.
Although, has that changed recently with whatever you said? Roy said they're getting internet.
No, so there was an article actually that now they do on their cell phones. They have access. I don't think you can have Wi-Fi in the home still, but they have it widely available as of now, or it's been approved and it's going through. But I think it's actually they basically just turned it on, because the article that I read, if I recall correctly, that it basically was like all of a sudden just they clicked on something or they started just getting alerts. Yeah. Like Facebook alerts or whatever it is. Like all of a sudden they had
and they didn't have to scratch a card off or anything.
So it's not even Wi-Fi, it's actual cell service. Okay. From what I understand.
So cellular data.
So you don't necessarily need to be in a hotspot if you're a Cuban resident on their plan.
Yeah, but keep in mind that the U.S. carriers again do not have a relationship with Cuba.
Correct. So Cuban citizens, yes, but
and some of them will allow you. Some of the T-Mobile, for example, will allow you to call out, but it will cost you, every bit of $3 or $4 a minute to access that network. So you have to be aware of that. That communications is not as robust in the United States. It's not even close. And your ability to you just gotta know what to do once you get there. First thing you do is get in, get settled to wherever you're going, get money converted, and most hotels will sell you the internet cards.
Yeah.
Know where the internet hotspots are. Most of the hotels have them, and just be aware of that. And once you get past that, it's all it's you're golden.
Yeah.
And it's somewhat cathartic, right? That you're not tied to the damn mobile phone. I find myself.
I love that part.
I just turn it off. You know,
Dude, it was
I
funny.
mess with it.
Well, I was taking pictures a lot. We were taking pictures
Yeah.
our first time down, but I called him out like the whole first day because it's like we'd be talking about something and like, well, when you guys were getting your money exchanged, we were standing in that lobby, the same story where we saw the CUCs and the other, like, so it was like 3.00 and then it was like 1500 or whatever it was.
Right.
Swear to God.
Just out of habit.
Brandon reaches in his pocket.
Google it.
Because we have it available. You know, Brandon reaches in his pocket and he flips it like he does the normal thing. You pull it out, flip it up, and oh shit. I was like, you were going to look online. He's like, yep. Puts it right back
It
in his
took like
pocket.
a day and a half not to pull the phone out. Just if I was bored for 5 seconds, you pull your phone out, start screwing around.
Absolutely.
It took a day and a half, but once that happened,
Right.
I loved being disconnected like that.
So one of the other things I would tell people as a recommendation is that if you go is to get an offline map.
Yeah.
And,
Galileo, is that what
so
you use?
I use Galileo Pro. It allows you to offload or download the map of Cuba, and then if you're not on a cell service or you're not on a Wi-Fi, your GPS will work, and you can at least see where you're at.
What was that called?
It's called Galileo Pro.
Galileo
Yeah,
Pro.
there's several of them out there. That's just, and I'm on an Apple device, so, but there's just little things like that you know, if you're going to Cuba, you just got to think ahead, you know, to make sure you're prepared.
And that I would have loved to have, but I mean, I didn't.
If you don't, yeah.
Never saw it.
Yeah.
So I'll say this too. One of the things that I tried to budget, and I went above my budget a little bit, just because it was one of those things. I'm not going to bring back any cigars. I come back to a humidor here, and it's like you get in it, and it's like, you know, I told Brandon, I said, hey man, like after this trip, I'm going to be tight for the next month, and we split a box. I still owe Brandon $100, which, you know, you have a friend that you can do that. I didn't want to run out of kook, because again, it's like,
Yeah,
I didn't know how much to bring, and then it's like the Monsdales or whatever, or the Bahiti, like all that stuff, the cigars. I said, Brad, like I should have enough, but do you mind if I hold on to it right now? And you know, Brad's like, yeah, no problem. We get to the airport, we get back to the States, and I had 99 kook left. I think I owed you like $100, and I was like, well, here you go, you're going back in a month, like, you know, so. But the things so what I would say you want to spend your money on is obviously if you're on a little bit of a budget, you just don't have a huge checking account, you can do the Airbnb, you can do the flight on credit card if you want to. When you get down there, it is all the little things. Like you just don't necessarily think you have to tip big, because we learned that they don't want you to tip big. It's like a 5% tip, that's it, typically. If you're going to restaurants, it's you don't have to go to all the nice restaurants. We went to some nice restaurants while we were down there. So like, you know, our average when we split the bill 4 ways was like 20 kook a meal, typically.
You can get by on $8 or $10 a meal easily down there.
Yeah, and then you think about the drinks. They're not super expensive, just like the States.
The money spends like it does here once it's converted. Like a cigar, $8 to $12 unless
That's absolutely right.
you have a certain relationship. Drinks, $3 to $6 generally.
Yeah, but if you're in a high-end hotel, it's like a $7 mojito versus if you're at one of the shops, it's $3.50.
That's right.
It's
almost it's like being home, but just you can't go to your ATM, so
we're not
keep that in mind.
When we go, we're not on a budget-minded trip. You know, we went to Destino, right? So it's a restaurant, and for the people on the listening in, Destino is in the 5th Avenue around the Embassy Row area.
Gorgeous.
It's a higher end restaurant. You're going to pay, you know, 2 people can easily, you know, get into $60, $70.
So we had the seafood thing,
Yeah,
seafood
yeah,
platter.
Yeah.
Destino is the first restaurant.
First restaurant we went to.
Where it was
outdoor patio in the back.
Yeah, was it you or maybe me and Mark got the seafood thing with the octopus?
Oh,
and
yeah,
the
yeah,
fish,
yeah.
the shrimp. It was delicious.
So anyway, long story short, you know, we've sought out some of the nicer places to go because they got great food and it's a great experience.
And you're able to.
But you don't necessarily have to do that. There's plenty of sandwich shops. There's great pizza down there. There's there's all kinds of, just little places to dive in and out of and grab a coffee and a quick sandwich, a cheese sandwich, or a Cuban sandwich, and you can get in and out of there for $8.
Well, and that's the whole thing is that you think like if you guys didn't know, and I think that was part of it too. Like when Mark went down the first time, when you went down for the first time, you're doing what I think a lot of people will be doing is you kind of just like any city that you don't say before the days of
you explore.
Before the days of even like you do TripAdvisor. And before that, it was like go back where you're going off of atlases.
Right.
You go into a city, you're taking recommendations from either people that have been there before. So that would be us, right? Check out Destino, check out some of the other restaurants we went to.
Right. Sandy's.
Or you ask the taxi driver, hey, I'm looking for just a quick sandwich. Where's a good spot? How far is it? All that stuff. And they'll give you like, okay, this is where I recommend.
Right.
And again, there's that trust level because they are in the tourist business. They want you either to come back or you say, they hand you, like Roy gave business cards. Because that's how it works. It's like there's either a Facebook address or there's something on there where if you have a friend going down, hey, tell you what, I went down, Roy was a great driver. You need to get a hold of him early so that if he's available, this is what it's going to cost you, but he is great. He's going to you want a place to eat, right. you want to go see some scenery, you want to go whatever, they know.
That's it.
And you kind of, they're your tour guide at that point.
That's exactly it.
But I think with the finances, it was definitely the food, but some of the things that I kind of thought about but forgot about was, again, not only the fee for the driver, but then you tip the driver, and then you're in the Airbnb, and there was a bill for like depending on where you're staying, but like for the waters you drank, they would come in and tally it up every night, stock it, and then at the end of your stay, they're collecting
20 or whatever it was.
It wasn't a lot, but I'm just saying it's like.
Or the breakfast, like they make breakfast.
Yeah,
I'll charge you for that.
Yeah, and that's just you being knowledgeable of it. But again, I'd say the big valuable lesson there is that take a little bit more than what you think you want to spend down there, because again, it's not like you can get wired money. You can't hit an ATM. You can't. You are there with that money, and that's it.
Yeah,
you're done.
A couple hundred buffer that you don't plan on spending wouldn't hurt.
Right, and then it's a matter of like, do you buy cigars? Do you buy that extra drink, just like you do back home? Do you spend that on something you need or not? But if you're getting tight on your budget and you've got a day left down there, just sit back. Sit back, smoke the cigars that you already bought or whatever you need to do. Go to the sandwich shop instead of a nice dinner, because going back to the airport, you might have to, you want to buy something else, or you need to pay for something you forgot about, whatever bill that you had that you were going to pay at the end of it. That's, I think, for me, besides the self-service and all that, like the change in lifestyle for a brief moment of time, it's that everyone is so either credit card heavy or you use your debit card instead of taking your ATM or any of that stuff. It's definitely different.
As far as Airbnb goes, can you pay with that as we normally would over the website? Like, because usually you use a card or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, does it work the same way when they're in Cuba?
Some of them do, because they have a connection usually somewhere here where the money goes to them and then they get it from them.
Oh, okay.
A lot of them though, like what we do is, you notice, and that's essentially what we've been doing is we pay ahead of time, but we have a relationship with a couple of people we stay with now, and they prefer to have U.S. dollars.
Really?
And and part of that is because they travel to the U.S. occasionally, so they want those U.S. dollars. And actually, if you think about it, because we don't have to convert it to coop, it's actually cheaper for us.
Yeah.
So there's been times when we've gone where we've been told, hey, reservation's booked, don't pay now. When you get here, bring U.S. dollars and we'll take your U.S. dollars.
Yeah.
And so then you pay when you get down there.
Nice.
If I may, just to switch gears, we fired up for a second cigar of the evening.
Yeah. How many people are still on, by the way? We've been on about 2 hours.
So
It fluctuates around 10 to 15,
Yeah.
honestly, and there's different people chiming in, and then they back out and they come back.
Yeah,
Like Dennis is on right now.
Do you have open questions? Or?
well, right now we are firing up the Partagas Maduro #1, which Brandon knows and Steve knows that I absolutely love.
Good.
This cigar. So thank you, Brad, for
You're welcome.
bringing the 2 cigars that we smoked. Steve's still working on the first Bahiki blend with the extra Ligero in it.
That's right.
But he'll fire up that Partagas after. Dustin actually had a question about his stick had like 2 holes that were poked in it, like almost
like 2 air holes.
they were like air holes.
On
One towards the foot, well, right after the band, and one towards the butt of it.
It's quite possible those are beetles.
Yeah.
Now
They were on the wrapper?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite
But
possible.
when I lit it and I drew through it, the air went through it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so it's quite possible, right? So, and that's the other thing. If you buy cigars in Cuba, all of them, there's none in them now. So when I bring them back, I put them in a refrigerator for 24 hours, and I drop them in a freezer for 2 days, back in the refrigerator for an hour to kill off anything before I introduce them into my humidor.
Can you reiterate that again, Brad?
Yeah,
So for the listeners, if you go down there, you've listened to everyone talk about different cigar, like the different experiences and what it takes to get down there, right? And if you guys have the funds and you really want to go down there, you've listened to that tonight. So, but if you buy cigars, this is what you should do if you come back with the cigars.
Yeah, so the cigars down there, they do treat them. The challenge is that the ones that are left on the island may not have gone through the full cycle of, where they refrigerate them and before they export them. So particularly, and this is particularly true if you're buying farm rolled cigars or custom rolled out of the shops. My habit is when I come back from Cuba, I keep all the cigars, obviously get them in my luggage, get them out of my luggage. They never touch my humidors until I put them in a refrigerator, and I do this to stage it, right? So cool the cigar in a refrigerator for 24 hours, and then drop them in a freezer for 2 days, and then that freezing the cigars down to the freezing level will kill off any larvae or any beetles that may be running around inside your cigars.
I thought that was the weirdest shit when Steve told me that when he got back. I was like, why are the cigars in the freezer?
What they say is it's not necessarily the beetles that are in it. It's not like they're like in
It's the eggs.
It's the eggs.
It's the eggs,
Especially the farm rolls is what you guys told us.
Yeah.
The farm rolls never leave the farm.
They never leave the farm, and even the ones that leave the farm and go into the aging houses, right? The ammonia that these leaves create will, for the most part, get rid of anything that's in them. But then they sit sometimes, right? They're in warehouses, and these warehouses are you can imagine there's a lot of fresh air and open air that comes in and out. There's no doubt that there's insects inside those houses. And it's not, this isn't unique to just Cuban cigars. This is any cigar, right?
Nicaraguan, Dominican,
It doesn't matter.
It's any agricultural product, really.
And as good as the tinderbox is, even when I buy boxes from the tinderbox, I freeze them before I introduce the entire box to my. No, I do. Yeah, it's just a safety mechanism. So Dustin, you may have gotten one that where those boxes. And that box was actually bought and then kept down in Cuba. So I bought that in February, and I brought it back in August. So it was kept, but it was wrapped.
That wasn't from the box you bought down there.
No,
Okay.
and these were wrapped in cellophane, and it's stored in an old freezer, basically.
Was that
Alex's place, and regardless of where they were stored, the reality is that it's likely that there were eggs in that hatched and they moved, right?
So it's just extra protein in my cigar is what I'm
No,
hearing.
they're all dead.
No, they're gone.
They're gone now. They're absolutely frozen.
To be honest, I really didn't notice anything unless the spot closer to the butt of the cigar. If I don't have it covered with one of my
Smoke it like
lips.
a flute.
Yeah.
But that's most likely that's what it is. Yeah.
Huh.
And it's
So,
not uncommon.
Amazing cigar.
So it's not uncommon too. Like we noted, and it's not as common, I don't think, in any of them, any country or whatever. But I've noticed that when we get them in the shop, it's typically not when it's already in our humidor. Like the holes are already there, and at some point when they were stored
But they were refrigerated to kill them off at some point.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, so when you open the box, you pull the cigar out and you take it up to the counter and you didn't even notice it. Like that could have been in the box like that when you bought it too.
Absolutely.
Like those holes could have been there. It could be completely not an after the fact thing. It's already happened, and when you get it, there just happened to be in that cigar.
So Dustin, you got 5 cigars that came out of that box, right? Mine doesn't have any of that. I don't know about these guys.
Mine doesn't. No.
So
places.
I don't either.
That's all right.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that when there was one, I'm not going to say the brand because I mean it's not like it doesn't happen to every brand, but there was this one box of cigars that we actually had to take out of the humidor and then tell our rep about, because what happened was that there were like 10 cigars in that box. We opened it up and noticed. Yeah, Brian noticed that like one had holes, and then you start looking at the rest of the box, and sure enough, they had probably moved through that. And there are times too where they actually will go right through the cellophane. The cellophane will have that exact same hole right there. So if they move around in a sense in that, or that batch had it, it's going to happen. You just want to, if that does happen, if you see it.
I don't care where you get them. I don't care what cigar shop you buy them from. I don't care if it's in America, if it's in Cuba, if it's in Hong Kong, where Ray is. I don't care where you buy cigars. If you buy a box of cigars and you're going to introduce them into a humidor where you got other cigars, it is in your best interest to freeze them.
That was one of the points that actually, when we were out at the farm, we were talking to Hirochi and them, that they had a question for me about the tinderbox and asked how we deal with that, because I guess, I forget what the
Was it
frequency
Argon
was.
or something?
Yeah, I forget what the frequency was, but they almost do, kind of like that the ozone, what is that machine? The ozone machine, where it basically, you know, if you don't want to be in the room or in your house, but if you run it for a certain amount of time, like if I ran it out here in the garage, close the window and everything else, it's fairly sealed, it would basically suffocate any living creature, any organism. So they were actually curious what we do on a periodic basis, in our, and I was like, no, we don't do anything. But we also don't deal with, like, they run dehumidifiers in their humidors. Right. Because in Cuba, it's a lot of them, even if they're air-conditioned facilities, they don't have the problem with humidity.
Right.
It's so humid down there.
They run air conditioner dehumidifiers, and ozone is somewhat effective on that. And I've got stand-up cabinet humidors, and I run ozones in those about every couple of months. And if they're even remotely active, it'll nail them. But if they're embedded in a cigar and an egg, the ozone won't get to that, right?
Right.
So, but the key is to treat your cigars. And again, that's not just a Cuban thing. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Well,
you always have a chance that there's larvae inside yours.
Is that more just? I mean, we see it more from cigars that you bring from other countries versus ones you get here, but it's still inevitable with any other cigars.
Well, all the cigars here are brought in. Most of them are brought in from other countries. So
sure.
Whether it's Nicaragua or Dominican, they treat the cigars before they ship them, right? Sure. Before they box them and they ship them. But it's not 100% foolproof. So just to Steve's point, in their shop, they open up a box, a fresh box, and they find that they got marks of beetles in there, right? And mine is probably just an insurance. It's not, you know, it may be a one in 1,000,
or 1 in 5.
No, it's an investment. You have a love for it.
But I tell you what, if you got 1,300 cigars in a humidor and you get a beetle infestation, that's a mess.
Yeah, so they're not going to obviously eat through the box. That's why if you open a box and you notice it, that's where you want to remove that box the soon as you can from the rest of your cigars. Now, if you have a bunch of loose cigars and you just throw them in there, that's the danger, right? Or if you open the box and you leave it open, so a lot of humidors are walking. Like in our shop, if you put them in the bins and they're in the bins, now you have a chance. It's not like they're gonna just like go to town and like you just lost all your inventory, but you're gonna lose some of your product. Or if you're a consumer, you're gonna lose some of your cigars.
But if you're aging cigars for a couple of years and you open up to the point and you've got cigars that have been loosely stored, which
you got some that are how many years old?
That's exactly what I do. I don't keep stuff in boxes. I put them in cedar trays and store them. And some of them are 7 or 8 years old. And I'm telling you, pull out a tray, and if you get a beetle infestation in there, they'll eat the tray.
Yeah.
And you're done. They'll turn those cigars.
The whole point, just to kind of clarify this, because this was new for Brandon and I actually coming back, is, I mean, yeah, absolutely, the old wives' tale is like, oh, so I keep them in the fridge, right? We get asked that at the shop a lot. But I just brought back cigars that I may or may never go back to Cuba. I'd like to go back, but it's like, my thought is and you're telling, it was like kind of like that last minute thing, is we're like all saying, oh, it's good. Hey, I got a text that night, remember that? It's like, oh, by the way, guys, to Brandon and I, make sure you throw your cigars in the freezer for 24 hours. And I'm like, hang on, what?
Right.
Why would I want to do that? And then like you explain it, the fact that it's actually the eggs
Right.
that in a sense you freeze them. I was explaining it almost like it cracks like it kills the egg.
Yeah.
So when you smoke it, there are a lot of cigars, honestly, that people don't talk about. There are a lot of cigars that are mass produced
Probably all.
that have
Probably all.
these very, very
Microscopic.
tiny eggs in them
All of them.
that you're
absolutely.
smoking through, but they've been basically destroyed so that they can't hatch, and therefore it's
So after you freeze them for 24 hours.
Well, I'd say 48. So
24 to 48.
it's a 4-day process for me. The first is
Okay.
refrigeration.
Okay.
Because I have a theory that if you have a cigar that's got some moisture in it, you go right to freezing, that it could potentially, because now you got water, right?
I wasn't told that.
And so potentially it could crack, and that swells, right? So it could potentially crack the wrappers, right? So I have a theory that you cool them first to acclimate them, and then drop for 24 hours, drop them into the freezer for 48 hours, 2 days, and then bring them back up to the refrigerator for another 24 hours to kind of reintroduce them, let them start to thaw out,
Okay.
and then put them back in your humidor.
So after you put them in your humidor, how long are we looking before you can actually smoke one? Is it just
It's
a day or?
days just like
once
they're humid,
once you take it out of the refrigerator and stick it in your humidor, you pull a cigar out within 10 minutes, it's back to room temperature.
The one thing Brad doesn't tell you too is like Brad also talks to his cigars in every step of the process. It takes him out and has like a little talk, like because you have like Brad likes to get to
He's
know
making
it.
this shit up.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I figured.
I had a question actually for Jake. So like Jake's doing the host job because we talked about this before, and Jake's like, I'm just gonna kind of ask the questions and everything else because this is kind of the Cuba trip thing.
Yeah.
My question to Jake though is that he and I have talked about it a great deal. He's heard you guys like talk individually after your previous trips and our trip. Like, what would you want to see? Like, if you said you're going down, you're going next month.
I'm not.
I mean, like, what are you
to.
like learning? What would you want to see? I mean, I think this is only fair that you've been the host and asking these questions. It's like based on all this information, like what fascinates you, what interests you, would you want to go?
We can go next month. You want to go next month?
I'd love to, Brad.
It's an easy get.
I just,
Hey, can you let him start his new job first?
Yeah,
it's like one of those things. Like,
yeah, like Steve and I have talked about it. Like I'm in between jobs, but we don't want to get on that.
No.
And obviously, like this is one of the things. Like I've heard numerous, just amazing stories from Mark Jeremias and yourself, Brad, that going down and. It's one of those things that you think about, and it does cost money, but it's like the experience is honestly like timeless and priceless. And I guess based on the stories I've heard around the table is that what I would love to see is much like what you guys got to experience on your first trip, Steve and Brandon, what it is that to see the culture, to actually experience the fine tuning of what we smoke all the time, and not all the time, but what we smoke, and I honestly would love to watch them, like the rollers and stuff, just roll cigars. If I was down there, I would really just try and get into one of the shops. And just if we had the availability and the grace of the owners and stuff to sit in there and watch what these rollers and these blenders do for a living. I mean that is something that I think is actually absolutely priceless if you're talking about an experience. And if I went down there, that's what I would love to see, and especially like talking about the Hector Luis and the Robainus experience that you guys did, and just on the simple fact that Mark just wanted to talk to a guy and say hello, and then you guys have this incredible experience and spend 3 to 4 hours just not bullshitting, but you talk, you meet people, you get to meet a person that has an entirely different lifestyle than yourself. and I think just understanding the culture and figuring out like what they do for a living and what goes into something that we just smoke, honestly, you know, I think that is incredible, and I think if I went down there, that's what I would look forward to most. Obviously, you know, if I went down there, I would prefer to be with you guys and to have a vacation and to have an amazing experience, but to see the culture and to see what they do down there and to experience all the history. That's what I loved about Italy and Spain, you know, when I was overseas and did that with, you know, the football and the opportunities that I was granted. To see the fact that cultures that tried to influence themselves and grow themselves, they have all this history and they don't want to ruin it, right? So they have all these old buildings, but they try to modernize the insides of them, and you see these like power lines that like were kind of irregularly like drilled into these old buildings that you know that people were pissed off about it because they're 200, 300-year-old buildings. You know what I mean? And it's just something like that. I would just love to experience the culture.
That's what fascinates me about it. So you're able to recall these buildings and what have you. And I've told, I've said this to my boys even. You can buy a lot of stuff, right? You can buy, you know, a house or a car or jewelry or iPads or iPhones or whatever. But the one thing that you can buy that will stick with you forever is memories.
Yeah.
And so the ability to, you know, put aside a little bit of, you know, expendable income and pick a place. It doesn't have to be Cuba, wherever, right? So raised in Hong Kong, you know, I have some really fond memories of China, Hong Kong in that area. Gorgeous city, fun city. Lots of memories there, but those memories will stick with me forever, right? And it's a return on investment that you'll never get on a lot of other things.
Well, I think it's if you're able to do it, like you said, you know, budget and all that stuff. You know, like you bring up Ray, and I don't know if Ray, if you're still listening, but if you have someone offering you something, I've said no a lot. That's like this Cuba trip. I said not no to Mark. I said not this time. Like finances, like let me set it up. Like you're gonna go several times, yeah. And thankfully, you and Mark had asked me, especially Mark. Like he really was like, hey. This is the next date. We're going with 4 people. Right. And I think you've gone down pretty much every time with the group of guys.
Right.
He goes down with Renee and his wife. Yeah. But it was one of those things where I think I said no like 2 or 3 times. Yeah, let me look at it. Like, and finally, like this time around, it was earlier in the year. Right. He says, August, September, what are you thinking? And I said, and I had set myself up to do so, you know, financially. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let me talk to Brian, like talk to my boss, like make sure I can get that time off. He doesn't have any vacations planned. Right. And, you know, like I said, coming back in my situation, it's like, I'm okay, but I'm tighter after a trip like that because it is a liquid type of a thing. Yeah, so you have to be able to like have your bills paid when you leave and come back afterwards, right. But be able to do that. And honestly, most people aren't sitting on a bunch of cash in their checking account. Right. You know, all their bills are accounted for. You're not necessarily going paycheck to paycheck, but you don't necessarily have a vacation fund, or you did have a vacation fund, and then all of a sudden you blew out a tire, you need a new set of tires or your brakes, you know, like something silly, like, oh, you know, like I had to buy a new dishwasher or something like that.
I understand.
So the fact that I agree completely that the experiences are huge. Ray says, hey man, you pay for the flight, I got you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I have that, and like, it's been sitting in the back of my mind that, like, you know, a flight to Hong Kong isn't cheap, but I would love to take it on. And now I think eventually it's going to be, hey, come to Vietnam. You know, like you have people that are inviting you to go, or, you know, I said to even Jake, I said, hey man, we've been doing these all-inclusives every year. Like, I would love for you to go on an all-inclusive. Yeah. And he had to say no this year because him, you know, he and Alicia
substituted all-inclusive. So again, you got a guy like Ray, and if I was going to go back to Asia, that's who I would try to reach out to.
Absolutely.
Because you know, he knows the area. You know, you'd be a great guide, so to speak, right? But so substitute your all-inclusive and go to Hong Kong. Right?
I just gotta say, look, Brad. You know I'm going with you one of these days. You know I'm going with you. I know getting we're reaching our end time on here, and I know we've had a great conversation. You think, Steve?
I agree. Yeah.
This has been definitely every time we've talked about Cuba, and we've only talked about like 2 or 3 times, but every time we talk about it, you learn something new, and I think that this has been a podcast that even, sitting back and listening to everyone, this has been really awesome. So again, for the second time, like we want to thank Brad, Grimsley, for being on and providing these cigars, and if you guys have anything else to say, if we could go Brandon, Brad, and I'll go, and then
before the closing remarks, though, this is the time. Thank you again to our sponsors. I mean, and everyone listening, especially the viewers right now. For those that are listening, if you guys, listen to this is a little different. We didn't necessarily dive into like a full bourbon review and a full cigar review and all that stuff. It kind of like was more of an organic type of a conversation, and it's one of those things that we appreciate you guys listening. We're still hitting around 1,000 views a week on the Facebook, which is great. My big thing is share it. Follow, like, that's how we're continuing to grow. Again, the sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton, even though they can't provide the cigars we're smoking legally. And then also Altadis, the flag behind us, which a lot of their brands actually have the namesake that's very similar to some of the stuff that we are smoking. You'll see these logos behind us on a lot of the cigars down there, obviously. But, I want to thank them. And then, again, BS Cigar, we've got a couple of BS lying around the garage, as always. They'll probably be fired up either later tonight or tomorrow. But, yeah, thank you to everyone watching. I wanted to kind of throw that out there. But, again, share, like, and follow. Tell a friend.
What do you think, Brandon?
Closing remarks, I would say if you're interested at all in going to Cuba, just do a little research, reach out to people that have been there. The country is amazing, the people are wonderful, and it's worth the trip if you have any interest whatsoever. One thing that I kind of wish I would have done, I'll do prior to the next trip, is a little more research on the history. I grew up throughout the 80s and 90s. The Cold War thing was still around. Cuba's the bad guy. So I didn't know a lot about the history of Cuba. I'd like to know a little bit more going back, just whether we're in Havana, certain buildings, or even other areas, or just understanding where the people are coming from a historical perspective, I think would be valuable. But if you're not into that, fine. If you're into Cuba at all, go. It's a wonderful vacation, wonderful experience, and well worth the trip. And not that expensive, really.
What I want to hear from Brad, though, like, I know you have like your closing remarks, but what do you? I guess our question to you is, you've been on here twice, right? And the first one we kind of got out of hand at the end of it.
We had way too much liquor.
It was also Booker.
Yeah, but granted, the batch that you brought was Kathleen's batch.
Honestly, if you keep asking him questions, we might have to edit out 20 minutes of this one too if it goes to 3 hours.
We've all loved it, you know what I mean? And I was just in Kentucky probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I brought stuff back for Brad. And that's kind of like the community that we've established, really. And we just want to thank you for being on. But is there something that you've like enjoyed with Bourbon and BS that you haven't enjoyed at other, at the cigar shop?
Oh, I appreciate the hospitality, right? So it's fun to chat, and I think the forum, the way that you conduct it, allows you to, you can stay on top. As it's shop, a lot of it is BSing around to BS.
Hey,
plug. A little bit of plug, yeah, thanks. So the forum you put together and picking topics and trying to delve into them, I've enjoyed this, right? So I appreciate the hospitality, and when Steve asked me, it's been a couple of weeks now, I've been talking, hey, we ought to do something to follow up the Cuba trip.
Yeah.
Try to pick a night that we could all do it, and so I was actually looking forward to it. I actually texted him. I said, hey, are we still on? Because I just want to make sure it's we're
happens to be the night that the next day you go back to Cuba. You know what I mean?
Hey, look, I'm in downshift mode now, right? So from work and travels and consulting and whatever. So
Yeah.
it's working out well for him.
You'd be smoking a cigar either at the shop or at home probably.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So 24 hours from now, I'll be in Cuba, drinking rum and smoking cigars. And
Rubbing it in.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. So,
Was there anything else that you would like to?
No, again, thank you for the hospitality. Really appreciate it, and I hope folks that maybe were listening that had. I know there were some curiosities about different things in Cuba. Hopefully, they got a little bit of insight. And by all means, if somebody is interested in going, it's not just myself or Mark. We've taken a large group down there now through the shop, and part of our rationale for doing that is so that we don't get all the questions, right? So please call Steve or Brandon. They have all the answers now.
Yeah.
It was funny too, like that Brad and Mark were down there. I think it was like night 3 or whatever. It's like, I think you said to Mark, like, so what do you think? Where do you think Brandon and Steve are on the list of people we asked to come back?
Yeah, we have.
Because they have like a filing system. There's certain people that are not on the top list of, hey, we got an opening this next
We have a
trip.
committee. We have committee meetings about when we're going to go again and who do we invite.
Committee meetings, just Brad and Mark hanging out.
Mark bullshitting in the shop.
Yeah.
It's not. There's nothing formal about it. It's usually somebody says, "Hey, are you going to Cuba again?" We go, "Yeah, okay, yeah." So you're in, right? So, but it's all good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. Yeah, good conversation.
What do you think, Steve?
No, I think to be fairly brief, I thank Brad and Brandon for coming on. Brandon's been on now 3-4 times.
3.
3 or 4.
Oh, I think 2 in a row.
2 in a row, yeah.
4 altogether.
Yeah.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right.
But I mean, it's one of those things, when you go down, I think Cuba is, it's funny when you say to people, I think that all 3 of us could probably say that down there, when we talk about, like, oh yeah, when I got back too, or I have gone on vacation, like, oh, where are you going? I'm going to Cuba. And people's eyes light up, especially in the cigar community, but even outside of the cigar
My
community.
mom's didn't.
She was worried.
I told
Oh,
my
I got the mom talk too.
I told my dad I was going, and then he goes up to their kitchen. She's in the kitchen, and he says, "Hey, Brandon's going to Cuba." Her response is, "Why the fuck is he going to Cuba?"
She's a lovely lady.
So I'll share just real quick, because I know we're running short on time. Same thing with my mom, right?
Yeah.
And actually, I think the first time I told her I was going to Cuba, I was sitting in the Detroit airport. And I wasn't going to Cuba then, I was going a little later, I was coming back from an international trip. And she goes, "Oh, Cuba, that's, what do you think? What do you have?" I said, "Stop." I said, "I'm in Detroit, Michigan. Are you kidding me?"
There was a comment when we were talking about the water. I think it was, Dave Sanders says,
"Are you kidding me?"
he says, "Well, the water's not drinkable in Flint either." It's all relative on where you're at.
I was
what
like,
country.
"Mom, stop. Are you kidding me?" Yeah, I'm sitting in Detroit, Michigan, of all places. Crying out loud. I feel way safer in Cuba.
Yeah, you know what people don't have in Cuba walking the streets? Guns.
Guns.
Because they would go away forever if not definitely.
Anyway, no, it's a great country.
No, I think, again, it was one of those bucket list things for me, and I'm glad I did it. I think Brad had a great point as far as, the experiences. If you're going to spend your money on something, there's a lot of people out there that will tell you that, and if you don't go and travel, you don't do something, it's that same thing as you have plans to go out with your friends, or hey, we're going to do a cabin weekend or whatever, and you just kind of think to yourself, I'm kind of nervous about it. I don't really know. I don't really know what to expect, and then you just back out.
We talked about it on the podcast about going out this summer and going to a live music event, within this year.
That's exactly right.
You know what I mean? That's the same exact thing.
You're gonna go to a concert, or you're gonna do like the camping weekend, like we did. We went out and did it, and then we had a great weekend on the Legend Valley.
Wish Steve would have had that first night, but that was good.
Some people have to work.
Well, I don't.
Wow. But no, I think, overall, it's the experiences. I think, when you do it with people that whether or not that Brad and Mark had done before, I think we had a great group, and that's the first, I've traveled with Brandon before. I went and visited him in Southern California years ago, but this is the first trip that I've done with Brad, other than our drive out to Poconos for Scarfest. But it's one of those things that I think it brings another level to a relationship also, not to get too deep into that, but it's like as you're doing with family trips, those are some of your Norris Lake thing, some of your fondest memories growing up is that family vacation because you have that family unit, you see them every day and all that stuff, but then you get out of your comfort zone and you're seeing new sights together, you're having new experiences together. And I think that's actually something that I feel like so Brandon, Brad, Mark, and I became closer on that trip because now we have this shared experience that we can talk about. Hey, remember one time that Brandon was drunk and we were calling him Mongo? Hey, let me bring up the video. Yeah, and we'll just laugh about it. Or the stories, you know, like the different places we went to, and you know, just and telling other people about it. There's an excitement that even other people, when you talk to them about vacations, it's not like that aunt that would show you the slideshow back in the 70s, you know, like, let me show you our trip to wherever, and like the whole family's sitting there, like kind of hunched over, like, how long is this going to go? You do an experience like this is really something that will bring excitement not only into your life, but people around you.
Well, it's a lifetime, right? It's a lifetime
Absolutely.
memory.
I think it's even something along the lines of, you know, we talked about topics, you know, we try to get a little bit organized.
Yeah.
And, you know, Steve's jotted down a lot of topics. And as of recently, we had one that, you know, don't miss opportunities.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And you know, to get on a personal note, like Steve and I have talked about, like either financial struggles or like something that, like, you had 2 vacations, but you had the opportunity to go down with these guys to Cuba, and it's like you come back and it's like things are a little tight, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. But it's like, if you're able to do it and still be tight, but still able to thrive when you get back, it's talking about, I think opportunities is the main point to this, is where when you're given an opportunity, if you're really able to do it, just grab it by the balls and just do it.
Well, yeah, and be smart about it, right? So it's not necessarily like you'll make more money when you get back, you'll do this, like there's always more money to be made, or the, you know, all that stuff. But it's also, if you start living your life, if you get that travel bug, if you get that, you know, you really want to have these experiences, you start living your everyday life like that, where it's like, you know what, I gotta save this much for a travel. There's a lot of people that do the travel budget. There's credit cards out there that have
GoFundMe page for crying out loud.
There you go.
Go fund my memory.
I like that.
I love it.
But I think that you're absolutely right, and those are those things. I mean, I spent, you know, a few $1,000s or so, give or take, on 2 trips in about 6 weeks apart. Not necessarily something that everyone can do. I'm able to do it, and you know, again, the memories I had down in DR with the all-inclusive with that group of people, and then doing this with the 3 other guys going to Cuba, you can't get that back.
No, and seeing other parts of the world, seeing other cultures, meeting other people makes you a far better person, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
I think everybody thinks that. Anybody that's traveled knows that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
For me, man, honestly, this has been within your guys' life-changing experiences, this has been a life-changing experience for me, honestly. Just hearing about the stories, I really, really enjoy it, and this has been definitely one for the books. It's always good to have Brad Grimsley on, and for the second week in a row, 3rd time, Brandon Karst, thank you for being on. Steve and I thank you for being on, and hopefully I get to go down with you guys soon. We would love to do this maybe, you know, in the next couple of years, but again, we like to thank you for our sponsors, Tinderbox Decent, even though they didn't provide our cigars tonight.
There's cigars here from
There's cigars here. There's
We'll smoke one.
There's always cigars around from Tinderbox Decent. We thank you, Brian. Thank you always. All to this, we also have some of your cigars around, Romeo and Julieta Reserve, right?
Reserva Real, yeah.
Reserva Real. Thank you for being our sponsor, and BS Cigar brand. You guys are awesome. That's probably going to be my next smoke. And Steve and I thank everyone for tuning in for episode 33 of the Bourbon and BS podcast. Even though this was unconventional and not our regular agenda, this was definitely one for the books, and we thank you guys for supporting us. Again, if you guys want to support and sponsor a podcast with a bottle of whiskey, please contact us at Bourbon and BS Podcast.
Bourbon and BS Podcast at gmail.com.
At gmail.com, or over Instagram or Facebook. Go like us if you don't already do that. But message us, and we will figure out a way to either buy the bottle, and then it'll all be reasonable. We're not gonna go out and buy a Pappy Van Winkle 23-year on your dime.
All of it.
Do they get to pick the subject if they buy it?
Yes.
No.
I think you toss that in there.
No.
I think that would be good.
If it's bullshit, is it reviewed, Brandon?
Yeah.
All right. Well, all right.
If you're in the area, you wanna be a guest on here as well. I mean, we do. I know you guys, everyone listening, enjoy the different people that come on the show, which is what it makes this. You know, we've had a couple episodes where it's just Jake and I, but having the guests on is really what brings a lot of depth to the show.
Yeah, and it's getting to be where we want it to be, and we just need a few more sponsors to take it to the
more
next
shares
level.
and likes and more views. Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting down to the point where we're noticing that the Facebook Live is really showing us the love. Again, we appreciate everyone listening to the audio aspect of it, and thank you. But if you don't tell somebody about it, then we can't make this better. We can't get a good table in here. We can't get bigger mics. We can't get better chairs in here. And the thing is, we would actually like to go to events and stuff and do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that is all accompanied by what you guys want us to improve on. So it's basically up to you.
Well, another thing too, like Brad's not on Facebook, right? So everyone looking for Brad on Facebook, he's not on there. He's got an alter ego, but I'm not gonna say what it is. Batman. No, but for if you want to watch this, if you guys are listening, if you're watching this now and you're sharing and you get to this late in the podcast, we're gonna keep plugging this, but now we're uploading the videos to YouTube. So if you want to actually watch it at your computer or you're at work and you don't want to listen to just the audio, you kind of want to see it and listen to it, YouTube is going to have each episode going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And stay tuned. We're going to do a bottle giveaway with a Bullet Bourbon 10-year that Dustin was graciously enough to get engraved by his company, and it says Bourbon MBS Podcast on it. So stay tuned for this next week. We're going to do a raffle off for that and do a randomizer. So make sure to stay tuned for that and keep your eyes open for that. Again, we thank you for listening and everything. Brad,
thank you.
Brandon, thank you guys for coming on. This was amazing, and we're going to continue to enjoy our night, and we hope you do too.
Yep.
Enjoy the weekend.
Wednesday.
Happy Whiskey Wednesday.
Cheers.
Cheers, everyone. Enjoy.
He's got his hands full, he can't stop complaining.
What's up, guys?
Man, I come 4 more times and I can officially say I've been to a full episode.